What if Deku was the Elden Lord and claimed the Demigod Queens and got Harem Chapter 1? The tarnished hero Izuku Midoriya had faced a lot of weird stuff since getting One for All, but nothing like this. One second he was fighting some reality-bending villain in downtown Mizutofu, green lightning crackling around his body as he dodged spatial rifts. The next, he was falling through endless golden light. He crashed face-first into dirt and grass. Not the clean-cut lawn of a city park, but wild, untamed field stretching toward distant golden-leaved trees. What the? Deku pushed himself up, spitting out grass. His hero costume was intact, though dusty. The familiar weight of his gauntlets and mask comforted him as he scanned the alien landscape. Where am I? The sky hung unnaturally bright despite what looked like eternal night beyond it, a massive glowing tree dominating the distant horizon. Its branches reached impossibly high, seeming to hold up the very stars themselves. Hello? Deku called out, voice echoing across empty fields. No response. He activated One for All, expecting the familiar green lightning to dance across his skin. Instead, golden light surged through him, spiraling in patterns he'd never seen before. The power felt different, wilder, more primal, yet somehow more controllable. What happened to my quirk? He jumped experimentally and shot 30 feet into the air, landing with perfect balance. Whoa! A ghostly trail of golden light seemed to stretch across the landscape, pointing toward a nearby church ruin. With no better options, Deku followed it. The dilapidated stone building loomed ahead, its walls crumbling but still standing defiantly against time. As he approached, a figure sat motionless beside what appeared to be a site of grace, a small, swirling point of golden light. "Excuse me," Deku called out, approaching cautiously. "Can you tell me where I am?" The man turned, gaunt-faced, wearing tattered armor. Another tarnished, guided by grace. "Humph, fresh meat for the slaughter." "Tarnished? I don't understand." "Of course you don't." The man gestured broadly. "Welcome to the lands between, guided by grace yet maidenless, I assume. You'll die here like all the rest." Deku frowned. Pessimistic stranger aside, he needed information. "I'm Izuku Midoriya. I'm not sure how I got here, but names mean nothing. Deeds are all that matter here. I'm Var. If you seek purpose, follow the guidance of grace toward Stormveil Castle. Challenge Godric the Grafted, claim his great rune. Perhaps you'll be the one to become Elden Lord." His laughter held no humor. "Or die trying, more likely." Before Deku could ask more questions, a thundering of hooves approached. A massive knight on an equally massive horse charged toward them, weapon raised. Knight cavalry. Var scrambled away. "Your first test, tarnished." The horseman bore down on Deku, massive halberd swinging. Acting on instinct, Deku activated One for All, golden light surging through him instead of green, and leaped over the attack with astonishing height. "Hey! I just got here." Deku called out, dodging another swing. "Can't we talk about this?" The silent knight answered with another vicious strike. "Fine then." Deku had faced worse odds. He analyzed his opponent's movements, slower than All Might but with devastating power in each strike. The horse moved predictably, turning in wide arcs. There was his opening. Deku darted between the horse's legs, One for All flowing differently through his body, more responsive, less destructive to his muscles. He landed a solid kick to the knight's armor, denting it but not penetrating. "Tougher than it looks," he muttered, dodging another swing. The knight raised its halberd high, gathering dark energy. Deku recognized a finishing move when he saw one. He charged One for All into his legs and leapt high, coming down with his signature move. Smash! His fist connected with the knight cavalry's helmet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then cracks spread across the black armor before it shattered completely. The knight dissolved into golden light, leaving behind only a weapon and something glowing. Deku landed, breathing hard but exhilarated. The strange golden energy of one for all still hummed through him, feeling almost happy. As if it belonged here somehow. Var emerged from hiding, eyebrows raised. Perhaps you're not so hopeless after all. That thing attacked us for no reason. Welcome to the lands between. Var chuckled. Everything here wants you dead. Gods, monsters, other tarnished, even the land itself sometimes. Deku picked up what the knight had dropped, a strange, rune-like object that pulsed with energy. A worthy prize, Var noted. Keep collecting those, and you might actually survive long enough to reach Stormveil. Look, I need real answers. I'm not from here. I'm a hero in training from, your past life matters not. All tarnished are called here after death or exile. The guidance of grace has chosen you to contend for the title of Elden Lord. Var pointed to the golden trail only Deku seemed able to see. Follow grace, gather strength, challenge the demigods, restore the Elden Ring. Simple, no. Deku bit back frustration. And what exactly is an Elden Lord? The consort to Queen Marika, ruler of all the lands between. Var smirked. Though she's been missing since the shattering, when her children, the demigods, warred over fragments of the Elden Ring. Now they sit in their domains, corrupted by power, waiting for someone foolish enough to challenge them. A memory of all might flashed in Deku's mind. Whatever this place was, whatever an Elden Lord might be, if it meant helping people suffering under corrupt rulers, that was something he understood. Rest at the sight of grace, Var suggested. You'll need your strength. Deku approached the swirling golden light. As soon as his fingers touched it, warmth spread through him, healing his minor injuries from the fight. He sat down, gathering his thoughts. One last question, he called to Var. You mentioned needing a maiden. A finger maiden, to turn runes into strength. Without one, you're at a disadvantage, though your strange powers might compensate. Var turned away. I'll be at the Rose Church if you survive long enough to seek me again. Left alone, Deku tried organizing his thoughts. A parallel world? Time travel? Neither explanation seemed sufficient. His hero analysis brain kicked into overdrive, cataloging facts, forming hypotheses. One for all worked differently here, resonating with this guidance of grace. The inhabitants called him tarnished, suggesting some kind of chosen or marked individual. And apparently he needed to defeat demigods and become Elden Lord to, what? Fix this broken world. Find a way home. A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. Hello there. Deku jumped up, ready for another fight, but the woman before him made no threatening moves. Dressed in a traveling cloak, with hair covering one eye, she offered a small smile. I am Malenia. I offer you an accord. I can play the role of maiden, helping you turn runes to strength, if you carry me to the foot of the Erdtree. Deku lowered his guard slightly. I'm Izuku. Izuku Midoriya. But most people call me Deku. Deku. She tested the name. I watched your battle with the Night Cavalry. You fight differently than other tarnished. Your power, it harmonizes with grace rather than just channeling it. Where I come from, it's called a quirk, one for all. Though it's acting strange here. Perhaps it's found its true nature. Malenia tilted her head. My offer stands. Will you accept my accord? Deku considered. He needed allies, information, and apparently this maiden role was important. I accept, but I need to understand more about this place. I don't belong here, and eventually I need to find a way home. The path to becoming Elden Lord reveals many secrets, Malenia replied. Including, perhaps, the knowledge you seek. She gestured toward the distant castle. Stormveil awaits, and within it, Godric the Grafted, a demigod who hoards a great rune. Defeat him, and your path forward will become clearer. Then that's where I'll go. Deku stood, determination settling over him. He'd been thrown into impossible situations before. The USJ attack, the training camp, overhaul, each time, he'd adapted and overcome. This would be no different. But first, he added, looking toward a distant plume of smoke, it looks like someone might need help over there. Malenia's visible eye widened slightly. Most tarnished focus solely on their ambition. I'm a hero before anything else, Deku replied simply, already jogging toward the smoke. The village was small, just a collection of huts surrounded by a wooden palisade. As Deku approached, he saw the source of the smoke, buildings set ablaze by marauding skeletal soldiers. Villagers cowered in corners or fled screaming while bony warriors wielding rusty swords methodically destroyed everything in sight. A child's cry pierced the chaos as a skeleton cornered a small girl against a burning building. Deku didn't hesitate. One for all surged through him as he leaped into action, golden energy trailing behind him like a comet. His kick shattered the skeleton into bone fragments, and he scooped up the girl before the burning timber could fall on her. It's okay, he assured her, setting her down beside her wide-eyed mother. I am here. The familiar phrase, All Might's catchphrase, felt right, even in this strange world. The skeletons turned their attention to him, empty eye sockets somehow conveying malice. Deku counted 12 of them, plus what appeared to be their leader, a larger skeleton wearing a crown-like helmet. Looking for a fight? Deku called out, dropping into a combat stance. Well, you found one. The skeletons rushed him all at once. Deku ducked under the first sword swing, using one for all at 20% to deliver a devastating uppercut that sent the skeleton flying into pieces. Two more approached from the sides, but he spun between them, letting their swords clash against each other before destroying them with quick strikes. He quickly discovered that the skeletons would reassemble unless struck with enough force to completely shatter them. Adjusting his strategy, Deku increased one for all's output, marveling at how much easier it was to control here. Within minutes, bone fragments littered the ground. Only the crowned leader remained, wielding a massive executioner's sword. You're a bit tougher than your friends, huh? Deku circled the skeleton cautiously. The crowned skeleton charged, swinging its massive blade in a horizontal arc. Deku leaped over it, analyzing his opponent's movements. Unlike the mindless drones, this one showed actual combat skill, feinting, changing attack angles, predicting Deku's movements. A swing came too close, slicing through Deku's sleeve and drawing blood. He winced but used the opening to deliver a counterattack, his fist connecting with the skeleton's ribcage. Bones cracked but didn't shatter. Time to finish this, Deku muttered. He channeled one for all throughout his body, golden energy swirling around him. The familiar sensation of full cowling, but stronger, more refined. The skeleton raised its sword for a powerful overhead strike. Deku saw his chance. Detroit Smash. His fist slammed into the skeleton's chest with explosive force. The crowned warrior didn't just break, it disintegrated, bone fragments turning to dust that scattered in the wind. The massive sword clattered to the ground, along with a glowing golden rune. As the dust settled, silence fell over the village. Then a cheer erupted from the survivors, who emerged from hiding to surround their savior. Thank you, Tarnished. I've never seen such power. Are you seeking to become Elden Lord? An older man who seemed to be the village elder approached, leaning heavily on a walking stick. You fought for us when you had no reason to. The other Tarnished who pass through only take what they want and leave. Deku scratched the back of his head, embarrassed by the attention. I couldn't just walk away when people needed help. A rare attitude these days. The elder sighed. These lands have known little kindness since the shattering. What name do you go by, Golden Warrior? I'm Deku. Deku, the elder repeated. We have little to offer in thanks, but please, take this. He presented a strange medallion half. It's said to grant access to the Grand Lift of Dectus, though we've never found its counterpart. Accepting the gift, Deku spent the next hour helping villagers extinguish fires and salvage what they could. When he finally prepared to leave, a small crowd gathered to see him off. "If you truly seek to become Elden Lord," the elder said, "then perhaps there is hope for the lands between after all." Malenia waited for him at the village outskirts, a curious expression on her face. "That was unexpected," she said as they walked away. "What was?" "Your willingness to risk yourself for strangers. Most tarnished are single-minded in their ambition." Deku shrugged. "Where I come from, that's what heroes do." "Hero?" Malenia tested the word. "We have no heroes here, only lords and servants, gods and mortals. Perhaps that's what these lands have been missing." As they traveled toward Stormveil Castle, Deku's reputation began to spread. Word of the Green Lightning Tarnished, who fought for the common people rather than personal glory, reached other settlements before he did. Some welcomed him with open arms, offering food and shelter. Others remained suspicious, they'd been disappointed by supposed saviors before. At each village, Deku found problems to solve. Bandits to drive off. Monsters to defeat. People to save. And with each victory, his understanding of one for all in this world grew. The quirk responded to his intentions more naturally here, as if the energy of this world, this grace, resonated perfectly with the power passed down to him. Along the way, Malenia shared fragments of history. How Queen Marika had ruled as goddess and monarch. How the mysterious Elden Ring had been shattered. How her children, demigods all, had claimed fragments called great runes and now warred amongst themselves, causing endless suffering for ordinary people. And becoming Elden Lord would help fix all this? Deku asked one evening as they camped near the Stormfoot catacombs. In theory, Malenia replied, gazing into their campfire. The Lord would restore the Elden Ring and establish a new order. What that order looks like depends on the Lord's vision. Deku thought about it. In my world, I was training to become the greatest hero. To save people with a smile, like my mentor All Might. Maybe that's still my purpose, just in a different world. A hero lord? Malenia's lips curved slightly. Unprecedented, but these times call for new ideas. First things first, Godric, right? Deku pulled out a notebook he'd acquired, flipping through pages of his meticulous notes about enemies he'd faced and regions he'd explored. Yes. He awaits in Stormveil. But be warned, he is no mere monster or marauding knight. Demigods possess fragments of divine power. I've faced powerful villains before, Deku assured her, though privately he wondered just what he was getting himself into. The next morning, they arrived at the massive gates of Stormveil Castle. The fortress was enormous, perched on a cliff edge with walls stretching impossibly high. Guards patrolled the battlements, and a heavy storm perpetually swirled around its highest towers. Impressive, Deku murmured, analyzing potential entry points. A hunched gatekeeper approached, eyeing Deku suspiciously. Another tarnished, seeking audience with Godric? That's right. Through the main gate, then. Or perhaps the side passage. The choice is yours, though neither path promises a warm welcome. The gatekeeper's smile didn't reach his eyes. Deku considered. The main gate would be heavily defended but direct. The side passage might offer stealth but unknown dangers. The main gate, he decided. Heroes didn't skulk in shadows. The massive doors groaned open, revealing a courtyard littered with bodies and patrolled by soldiers. Beyond stood the imposing castle proper, where Godric awaited. Good luck, tarnished, the gatekeeper called mockingly. Do try to die somewhere convenient for collection. Deku ignored him, focusing instead on the challenges ahead. One for all hummed through his body as he stepped through the gate. The castle proved to be a nightmare of narrow passages, ambushes, and deadly traps. Soldiers wielding halberds attacked from behind corners. Giant birds with blade-attached limbs swooped from the skies. Mechanical contraptions fired volleys of arrows down long corridors. Through it all, Deku adapted and analyzed, his hero training proving invaluable. He mapped escape routes, identified enemy patterns, used the environment to his advantage. When direct confrontation was necessary, One for All gave him the edge, golden energy flowing more naturally with each battle. Deep within the castle, he encountered a knight unlike the others, a massive warrior in golden armor wielding a powerful halberd. "You've come far, Tarnished," the knight's voice echoed from within his helmet. "But Godric doesn't grant audience to weaklings." "I'm not here for an audience," Deku replied, settling into a fighting stance. "I'm here to stop him from hurting more people." The knight, Godric's champion, Deku realized, charged forward. Their battle shook the castle's foundations, stone cracking beneath their clashing power. The knight was skilled, centuries of experience evident in every precise movement. But Deku had faced skilled opponents before. He studied the knight's patterns, noticed the slight hesitation before overhead strikes, the tendency to guard his left side more heavily. After taking several hits that would have killed an ordinary person, Deku found his opening. Feinting to the right, he suddenly changed direction, sliding under the knight's guard and delivering a devastating uppercut empowered by One for All. The knight's helmet shattered, revealing a face twisted with hatred before it dissolved into golden light. Breathing heavily, Deku collected himself before pushing forward. A massive doorway loomed ahead, flanked by statues of warriors in various poses of agony. Beyond, he could feel a presence unlike anything he'd encountered so far. Godric the Grafted awaited. Taking a deep breath, Deku pushed open the doors. The arena beyond was massive, open to the stormy sky above. And in its center stood a nightmare-made flesh, a twisted figure with countless arms grafted to his body, each wielding a different weapon. A crown sat upon his head, and malice gleamed in his eyes. "A puny Tarnished, approaching me?" Godric's voice boomed across the arena. "I command thee, kneel." Deku stood his ground. "I've heard about you. How you prey on the weak. How you graft their limbs to yourself seeking power that isn't yours to claim. Insolence!" Godric roared. "I am lord of all that is golden." "True power isn't about what you take from others," Deku called back. "It's about what you can give." Godric charged, multiple arms swinging weapons in a whirlwind of steel. Deku dodged and weaved, looking for openings while analyzing his opponent. Despite the demigod's fearsome appearance, Deku noted his movements were uncoordinated, too many limbs working without true harmony. The battle was intense. Godric commanded winds that threatened to blow Deku from the arena. Weapons slashed from impossible angles. When Deku landed solid hits, they seemed to barely faze the demigod. "You fight well for a Tarnished," Godric admitted after Deku landed a particularly powerful blow. "But witness true power." To Deku's horror, Godric severed his own arm and grafted a dragon's head in its place. Fire erupted from the dragon's maw, forcing Deku to leap desperately aside. The heat was intense enough to scorch stone. "Okay, that's new," Deku muttered, rolling away from another blast of flame. He needed a plan. Conventional attacks weren't working, Godric simply had too many limbs, too many weapons, too many ways to attack. But all those grafted parts, they couldn't be perfectly integrated. There had to be weak points where the foreign limbs connected. Charging One for All to its maximum safe level, Deku moved with blinding speed, becoming a golden blur. He targeted the joints where grafted arms connected to Godric's body, striking with precision rather than raw power. Godric howled as arms began to fall away, his carefully constructed patchwork of stolen power literally falling to pieces. The dragon had tried to bite Deku, but he grabbed its jaws and forced them shut before the flame could form. "Impossible." Godric staggered back. "I am a god." "You're just a bully who couldn't earn his own strength," Deku replied, golden energy crackling around him. "This ends now." Channeling One for All into a final, devastating punch, Deku struck Godric squarely in the chest. The impact sent the demigod flying backward into his own throne, which shattered under the force. Godric lay amidst the rubble, his many arms twitching uselessly. Godric the Golden, defeated by a mere tarnished. The demigod gasped. The indignity. Light surged from Godric's body as he dissolved, leaving behind a glowing great rune and a remembrance of his power. Deku approached cautiously, collecting both. The great rune pulsed with energy unlike anything he'd felt before. This fragment of the Elden Ring contained power that could reshape reality itself. Well done. Malenia's voice startled him. She stood at the arena's edge, observing with that mysterious half-smile. You've claimed your first great rune. What do I do with it? For now, keep it safe. When the time is right, I'll help you harness its power. She approached, examining Deku's injuries. You fought differently than most would. You targeted his weaknesses rather than trying to overpower him directly. Deku nodded. Brute force isn't always the answer. A lesson many tarnished never learn. Malenia gestured to the great rune. With this, word of your deed will spread. The other demigods will take notice. Some may see you as a threat, others as an opportunity. As they left Stormveil behind, Deku couldn't help but feel he'd taken his first real step into this strange world. One demigod defeated, but according to Malenia, there were several more, each holding a great rune essential for restoring the Elden Ring. Where to next? He asked as they descended from the castle heights. North lies the Academy of Raya Lucaria, domain of Rennala, Queen of the Full Moon. East, the scarlet-rotted wasteland of Caelid, where Malenia's battle with General Radon left devastation in its wake. And beyond, many other lands, each with their own dangers. And Malenia? You mentioned her before. The blade of Miquella, said to be undefeated in combat. She guards her brother in the secret Haligtree, or did until recently. Rumor says she's searching for him now, after he was taken by Mog, Lord of Blood. Something about Malenia's story resonated with Deku. An undefeated warrior, fiercely protective of her brother, afflicted with some kind of disease called scarlet rot. There was more there, he sensed. Their journey took them to Liurnia, a vast lake region dominated by the gleaming Academy of Raya Lucaria. Unlike the direct approach at Stormveil, Deku took time to explore, helping locals troubled by marauding sorcerers and strange creatures from the lake depths. News of his victory over Godric had indeed spread. Some tarnished sought to challenge him, eager to take his great rune for themselves. Others offered allegiance, sensing his growing power. Deku accepted neither challenges nor followers, instead continuing his habit of helping where needed and moving on. His reputation grew further. The Green Lightning Tarnished became Godric's Bane and the Hero Lord, titles that made Deku uncomfortable but opened doors that would otherwise remain closed. It was in a small encampment near Kuria Manor that Deku first heard detailed accounts of Malenia. Undefeated, they say, an old warrior told him over a shared meal. Trained from birth in the ways of the blade. Would have been a fine Elden Lord herself if not for the scarlet rot eating her from within. What exactly is this scarlet rot? Deku asked, already taking notes. A disease, a curse, a punishment from the outer gods, depends who you ask. Turns flesh to fungus, mind to madness, eventually. Malenia was born with it, yet fights on. Impressive, really. And she's looking for her brother? Miquella? Aye. Stolen away by Mog while she was unconscious after her battle with Radon. That fight. The warrior shook his head. Devastated all of Caelid. She unleashed the rot fully for the first time. Neither victor emerged, though both lived, after a fashion. Radon's mind is gone, they say, while Malenia sleeps at the Haligtree, or did, until Miquella's abduction woke her. Deku thought about this. A warrior struggling against a power within her that caused harm when unleashed fully, it reminded him of his early days with One for All, when he couldn't control it without breaking his own bones. Where would I find her? He asked finally. The warrior stared at him like he'd grown a second head. You want to seek out Malenia? After what happened to Radon? Boy, even with Godric's great rune, that's suicide. I just want to talk to her. Ha! Talking isn't what demigods do with tarnished. They destroy them. The warrior leaned forward. But if you're determined, rumors say she's hunting Mog, who dwells beneath the Mogwin palace. Reaching it requires either the favor of the Lord of Blood or a secret medallion that unlocks the hidden path. Deku nodded thoughtfully. Another quest, another challenge. But first, he had other matters to attend to. The journey through Korea Manor proved challenging, with strange hand creatures scuttling from shadows and powerful sorcerers throwing deadly spells. At its heart, Deku confronted and defeated the Red Wolf of Radagon and Loretta, Knight of the Haligtree, earning respect and another step toward his growing legend. Beyond the manor, he found a rise overlooking a glowing blue expanse. Ranni's rise, Malenia informed him. Domain of Ranni the Witch, daughter of Ranala and, well, that's a complex tale. Another demigod? Yes, though she walks a different path than her siblings. She rejected her great rune and the Two Fingers guidance, pursuing her own agenda. Curious, Deku approached the tower. At its top, he found not the witch herself but three spectral figures, servants, he realized, named Iji, Blade, and Saluvis. They regarded him with surprise. A tarnished at Our Lady's tower? The ghostly blacksmith Iji mused. Unusual. I'm Deku. I'm trying to understand this world better, and I've heard Ranni might have knowledge others don't. Presumptuous, Saluvis sneered. Our Lady doesn't grant audience to random tarnished, unless, Blade interrupted, they prove worthy. I've heard tales of you, Godric's bane. They say you fight for the common folk, not just power. That's right. The wolf-headed warrior nodded appreciatively. Different from most tarnished. Perhaps Our Lady would speak with you, but she's not here at present. A test, then, Iji suggested. The manor's lord, Our Lady's mother, has fallen under a spell at the academy. Free her, and perhaps Ranni will deem you worthy of conversation. It wasn't the direction Deku had planned to go, but he sensed these connections were important. Understanding the demigods and their relationships might reveal paths otherwise hidden. I'll do it, he agreed. The Academy of Raya Lucaria presented its own unique challenges, sorcerers wielding powers that reminded Deku of certain quirks from his world, bizarre creatures created through magical experimentation, and environments that defied physical laws. Through it all, Deku adapted, his analytical mind finding weaknesses in even the most arcane defenses. At the Academy's heart, he confronted Ranala, Queen of the Full Moon, or what remained of her. The once great sorceress now sat amid her children, creepy dolls she treated as real, lost in delusion while a protective spell sustained by her students kept her safe. Breaking the spell required defeating her guardians while avoiding harming the clearly disturbed queen herself, a challenge perfectly suited to Deku's non-lethal combat style. When the protective barrier finally shattered, Ranala rose, power flowing back into her frail form. Thy kind are all of a piece, she whispered, voice cracking from disuse. Pillagers. Emboldened by the flame of ambition. I'm not here to pillage, Deku replied gently. I was asked to help free you from the spell. Moonlight gathered around the sorceress as she floated into the air. Then thou must prove worthy of audience with my daughter. The battle that followed tested Deku in ways Godric hadn't. Where the grafted lord relied on brute force and numbers, Ranala wielded arcane power with precision. Books flew like missiles. Spectral students launched spells from all directions. When directly confronted, she would teleport away, summoning creatures to fight in her stead. Deku adapted, using his speed to close distances before she could teleport, disrupting her summonings, deflecting projectiles back at their source. Throughout, he was careful to use only enough force to overcome her magic, not harm the woman herself. Finally, when it seemed he'd won, the arena transformed. Moonlight covered everything, and Ranala rose again, now radiating power unlike before. Upon my name as Ranala of the Full Moon, she intoned, voice suddenly stronger, and the power of her newborn stars, come forth. This second phase nearly overwhelmed Deku. Massive magical blasts, summoned dragons and knights, gravity itself turned against him. Only his experience fighting quirk users of various types allowed him to survive, recognizing patterns and finding counters. When he finally broke through her defenses again, Ranni collapsed to her knees, the moonlight fading. But before Deku could approach, another voice spoke. "Let it be known," said the calm, melodic female voice, "the Queen of Korea has seen fit to grant the audience." The speaker revealed herself, or rather, her projection. A blue-skinned, four-armed woman with a porcelain face and witch's hat. "Ranni. Leave mother be," she continued. "Her defeat is punishment enough." "I never intended to harm her," Deku assured. "Your servants at the tower suggested this might get your attention." Ranni's spectral form studied him curiously. "Indeed it has. The Tarnished who defeated Godric not through ambition but principle." "Curious. Meet me at my tower, if audience is what you seek." The projection vanished, leaving Deku alone with the once again catatonic Ranni. Gently, he helped the queen back to her chair before departing. When he returned to Ranni's rise, the witch herself awaited, sitting on the tower's highest level. In person, she was both more and less imposing than her projection, smaller in stature but radiating an aura of power that made the air itself feel heavy. "So," she began without preamble, "thou hast defeated Godric and freed my mother from her self-imposed prison. Impressive for a Tarnished so new to these lands." "Thank you for seeing me," Deku replied, respectfully but without subservience. "I'm trying to understand the path forward in this world." "The path to Elden Lord, thou meanest. Following the guidance of grace like a good, obedient Tarnished." Her tone carried subtle mockery. "I'm following a path that lets me help people suffering in this world," Deku corrected. "If becoming Elden Lord does that, then yes." Ranni's porcelain features couldn't show expression, but her head tilted slightly. "An unusual perspective. Most seek the throne for power alone. Where I come from, the greatest hero wasn't the one with the most power, but the one who saved the most people with a smile." "How quaint." She studied him. "Yet perhaps refreshing, in its way. Tell me, what dost thou know of the demigods and their great runes?" Deku recounted what he'd learned so far, about Godric, about Ranni, carefully, about the rumors of Radon, Malenia, and the others. "A basic understanding," Ranni acknowledged. "But incomplete. What they haven't told thee is that the path laid by the two fingers, the emissaries of the greater will, leads not to freedom but perpetuation. The cycle of the Erdtree consuming all, only to begin anew. And you have a different vision. I seek the age of stars, freedom from the greater will's dominion. A colder, more distant order, perhaps, but one of true independence." Deku considered this. "And the other demigods? What are their visions?" Godric had none beyond his own grafted power. Radon, once noble, now mindlessly guards the stars themselves, preventing certain destinies. Morgott defends the old order. Rykard seeks to devour the very gods." She paused. "And Malenia, she fights only for her brother Miquella, the most pure-hearted of us all, yet cursed to eternal childhood." At the mention of Malenia, Deku leaned forward. "I've heard she's afflicted with scarlet rot, yet remains undefeated in combat." "Indeed. A remarkable feat, containing such corruption while maintaining such strength. Even her battle with Radon ended not in defeat but mutual destruction." Ranni's voice carried something like respect. "Now she hunts Mog, who stole her brother away to his palace of blood." "And where would I find her?" Ranni's head tilted again. "Thou wishest to seek out Malenia. For what purpose? Her great rune?" "No. I think I might understand something about her struggle. The parallels to my own power's development." "Intriguing." Ranni seemed genuinely curious now. She was last sighted in eastern Caelid, tracking blood trails toward Mogwin Palace. But be warned, the rot has taken much of her rationality. She may not distinguish thee from an enemy. Deku nodded, making notes. Thank you for the information. And, what about your goals? You mentioned an age of stars. Indeed. I seek to unseat the greater will's influence. If such a path interests thee. She extended one of her 4 hands. I could use an ally of thy capabilities. Deku considered the offer. Having a demigod as an ally could be invaluable, yet her goals remained somewhat mysterious. I'd like to learn more before committing to any specific vision for this world's future. Ranni withdrew her hand, seeming unsurprised. Wise caution. Should thy journey bring thee to align with my aims, return. Until then, a gift for thy courtesy. She presented him with a bell that gleamed with spectral light. The Spirit Calling Bell. It allows communion with spirits of the fallen, calling them to aid thee in battle. Deku accepted it gratefully. Thank you. I hope our paths cross again. They shall, tarnished hero. The currents of fate ensure it. Her form began to fade. Seek Malenia if thou must, but remember, her loyalty lies solely with her brother. All else is secondary to her. As Deku descended from the tower, Malenia rejoined him, having waited below. You spoke with Ranni, she observed. Few tarnished earn such privilege. She has an interesting perspective on this world. She would remake it entirely, severing ties with the greater will. Malenia's expression was unreadable. A dangerous ambition. And what about you? Deku asked directly. What future do you envision for the lands between? Malenia looked toward the distant Erdtree. I seek its burning, for what lies beyond. But the specific shape of the world thereafter, that will depend on what manner of lord you become. They traveled eastward, toward the scarlet wasteland of Caelid. The landscape grew increasingly nightmarish, trees twisted into screaming forms, water turned to blood, creatures mutated beyond recognition by the scarlet rot. In a church sanctuary, they encountered a woman named Millicent, her arm rotted away, yet still fighting to maintain her dignity and purpose. You're heading deeper into Caelid, she asked when Deku mentioned his destination. Few do so willingly. I'm looking for Malenia. Millicent froze. Lady Malenia? Why would you seek her? I think I might understand something about her condition. About controlling power that hurts you when used. The woman studied him with newfound interest. I have a connection to Lady Malenia, though I've never met her. Some say I'm her daughter, or perhaps born of her rot. Either way. She gestured to her missing arm. We share a burden. Deku listened as Millicent shared what she knew, how Malenia had trained from childhood to contain the rot, developing a fighting style that emphasized precision over raw power. How she had nearly succeeded until her battle with Radon forced her to unleash the rot fully, devastating Caelid and herself in the process. And now she hunts the Lord of Blood, Millicent concluded. For taking Miquella while she recovered. Alone, afflicted, determined beyond reason. It sounded painfully familiar to Deku. How many times had he pushed beyond his limits, breaking his body to save others? How often had he charged ahead alone rather than endanger friends? Thank you for sharing this, he told Millicent. Is there anything I can help you with before I go? She hesitated. There is a prosthetic arm, crafted by Master Gowry, that might replace what I've lost. But retrieving it would mean venturing into the heart of the swamp, where the rot is strongest. Consider it done. The journey into the swamp of Ionia tested Deku's resistance to the rot itself. The miasma clung to him, trying to corrupt flesh and mind alike. Only the cleansing power of sacred tears collected from churches kept the infection at bay. At the swamp's heart, surrounded by enormous rotted flowers, he found the prosthetic arm in a chest guarded by putrid avatars, one sacred creatures now corrupted beyond recognition. The battle against them was as much about avoiding contamination as defeating them, requiring precise movements rather than prolonged contact. When he returned the arm to Millicent, her gratitude was palpable. "You risked the heart of the rot for a stranger. Lady Malenia was right to seek allies among the tarnished." "She's seeking allies?" "Not actively, but she once told Miquella that true strength comes not from conquest but connection." Millicent attached the prosthetic, wincing as it magically fused with her stump. "I intend to find her myself, to understand my connection to her. Perhaps our paths will cross again in that search." Deeper into Caelid, Deku encountered more evidence of Malenia's passage: slaughtered blood cult members, abandoned camps where witnesses described a golden-armored woman moving with impossible speed despite obvious affliction. At Fort Farath, he found a woman's helmet abandoned near a blood-stained map. The helmet was beautifully crafted red-gold metal with flowing red hair attached, matching descriptions of Malenia. The map had a location marked in what appeared to be blood, Mogwin Palace. "She's tracking him directly," Deku noted, studying the map. "But how do I reach this place?" Malenia examined it. "Mogwin Palace exists in a realm slightly adjacent to our own. Access requires either the Lord of Blood's favor or a secret medallion said to be split in 2 parts. Deku remembered the medallion half given to him by the village elder. "I have 1 piece already. Then we must find the other." Malenia pointed to markings on the map. "These suggest the castle Sol and the mountaintops of the giants. A difficult journey, but possible with your strength." Their path forward clarified, Deku prepared for the challenges ahead. As he stood at Caelid's edge, looking toward the mountains in the far distance, he couldn't help but feel drawn to Malenia's story. A warrior of unparalleled skill, cursed with power that destroyed her when fully unleashed, fighting to protect someone precious to her. The parallels to his own journey with One for All were striking. Perhaps in helping her, he might find answers about his own situation in this strange world, and maybe, just maybe, a way home. But more than that, he felt compelled to help someone suffering under a burden similar to what he'd once faced. In a world where demigods fought for power and ambition, perhaps what was needed most was someone who understood the responsibility that came with great power. With renewed determination, Deku set his sights northward. The path would be long and dangerous, but at its end waited a warrior who might understand his perspective better than anyone else in the lands between. Chapter 2, The Scarlet Bloom. The journey to Castle Sol pushed Deku to his limits. The mountaintops of the giants lived up to their name: bitter cold, howling winds, and treacherous paths where one misstep meant death. Ancient giants patrolled the snowfields, their footsteps shaking the ground. Fire prelates guarded abandoned churches, hurling massive fireballs at any who approached. "So much for the direct approach," Deku muttered, crouched behind a rock as a fireball sailed overhead. He'd learned to adapt One for All to this harsh environment, using precise bursts of power to move across snowdrifts without sinking and generating enough body heat to survive the biting cold. The golden energy seemed to respond to his needs almost instinctively now, evolving beyond what he'd been capable of back home. Castle Sol loomed ahead, a dark silhouette against the perpetual twilight of the mountains. Banners bearing a twisted eclipse symbol fluttered from its ramparts. Something about the place radiated wrongness that made Deku's skin crawl. The commander of this castle was devoted to Miquella, Malenia explained, materializing beside him. When his attempts to restore Miquella failed, he descended into madness. His spirit likely still guards the secret medallion half. Deku nodded, making a note in his journal. "Any specific dangers I should know about?" "The castle is haunted by spirits of knights who died in the commander's service. They appear and disappear at will, making conventional battle tactics unreliable." "Ghosts, huh?" Deku grinned slightly. "I've fought villains with intangibility quirks before. The principle's probably similar: wait for them to become solid to attack." Infiltrating the castle proved harder than anticipated. Spectral knights materialized from thin air, their transparent forms becoming solid only as they swung enormous dual swords. Normal soldiers patrolled alongside monstrous lions with blades grafted to their legs. From the highest tower, a continuous eclipse ritual channeled dark power throughout the fortress. Deku moved methodically, analyzing patterns and weaknesses. The ghost knights could be tracked by the frost they left in their wake. The lions, though powerful, had poor turning ability. Each victory taught him something new about this world's twisted logic. In the castle's heart, he finally confronted Commander Neil, a one-legged veteran who summoned ghostly banner-bearing knights to fight alongside him. The commander fought with brutal efficiency despite his disability, using a prosthetic leg that crackled with lightning. Another tarnished seeking passage? Neil's voice echoed metallically through his helmet. The path you seek leads only to misery. I need to find Malenia, Deku replied, dodging a lightning strike. To help her. Help? Neil laughed bitterly. None can help those touched by outer gods. I tried to help Lord Miquella and failed. My men died for nothing. That doesn't mean we stop trying. The battle pushed Deku to new heights of speed and analysis. Neil's lightning attacks carried devastating power but followed predictable patterns. The Ghost Knights required constant awareness of multiple threats. Deku adapted, using the environment to separate his opponents, focusing on the Banner Knights first before turning his attention to Neil himself. When the commander finally fell, dropping to one knee as his life ebbed away, he fixed his gaze on Deku. You fight differently than most tarnished. Not just for yourself. Neil gestured weakly toward a chest in the corner. Take the medallion. But heed my warning, the path to Miquella and his sister leads only to tragedy. I'll find another way, Deku promised, claiming the second medallion half. As he left the castle, medallion in hand, Deku noticed something strange. The snow where he walked briefly bloomed with tiny flowers before being reclaimed by frost. Almost as if the land itself responded to his determination. The secret medallion, now complete, pointed to a hidden lift in the consecrated snowfield. Reaching it required traversing perhaps the most dangerous region yet, a vast expanse where blizzards reduced visibility to nothing and ice assassins lurked in the whiteout. Using one for all to enhance his senses, Deku navigated by sound and subtle shifts in the snowfall. He rescued stranded travelers, defeated marauding trolls, and even banished an ancient Evergale-bound warrior who had terrorized the region for generations. At a lonely church half buried in snow, he encountered Millicent again. Her prosthetic arm now moved naturally, though the skin around it showed worrying signs of scarlet infection. We meet again, hero, she greeted him. You're still pursuing Lady Malenia, I see. And you? How's the arm? She flexed the golden fingers. Functional, though not without cost. The rod advances, but slowly enough that I might complete my journey. Have you learned anything more about Malenia's whereabouts? Millicent nodded. She confronted Mog already, from what I've heard. The battle was inconclusive. She couldn't defeat him in his own realm, not while protecting herself from the rot. She's returned to the Haligtree to recover. Deku made quick notes. The Haligtree? Not Mogwin Palace. The Haligtree was meant to be Miquella's sanctuary, a place where all outcasts could find peace. It's also where the unalloyed gold that slows the rot's progress is most concentrated. Millicent looked at her arm meaningfully. I head there myself, to understand my purpose. Maybe we could travel together. Deku suggested. Millicent shook her head. My path requires solitude. But here. She handed him a talisman shaped like a golden needle. This might help you gain audience with Lady Malenia. It shows you're connected to her somehow, through me. Deku accepted the gift gratefully. I'll see you there, then. If we both survive that long, she replied with a grim smile. The hidden lift, activated by the two medallion halves, descended into darkness. When it finally stopped, Deku emerged into an entirely different environment, a blood-soaked landscape under a crimson sky. Mogwin Palace. The home of the Lord of Blood, Malenia whispered, materializing beside him. Created through blasphemous rites that tore a hole between realms. The palace was less a building than a massive excavation into bloodstone. Rivers of blood flowed through carved channels. Corpses hung from hooks, still dripping. Albinoric servants with blood-bloated bodies shuffled through corridors performing incomprehensible rituals. "Charming place," Deku muttered, careful to avoid the blood pools that seemed to reach toward him with malevolent purpose. Fighting through the palace's defenses required constant vigilance. Blood flies swarmed any exposed skin. Assassins wearing crow feathers emerged from shadows. Nameless horrors created through blood experimentation lurked in chambers where the walls themselves pulsed like living tissue. Near the palace depths, Deku encountered a bizarre sight, a massive cocoon suspended over a pool of blood, tended by robed cultists. Within, he glimpsed a hand pressed against the membrane from inside, small, like a child's, yet somehow ancient. Miquella, he realized. Before he could approach, a blood-red phantom materialized. Another seeker, the phantom hissed, its face concealed behind an executioner's mask. "Lord Mog has no time for tarnished meddlers." "I'm not here for Mog," Deku replied. "I'm looking for information about Malenia." The phantom's posture changed subtly. "The rot goddess. She came, she fought, she fled. Even she could not stand against our lord in his domain of blood." It gestured to blood stains on the floor. "Some of hers remains, mingling with our lord's ichor. Beautiful communion." Deku's eyes narrowed. Where did she go? Limping back to the Haligtree, trailing rot and failure. The phantom drifted closer. Our lord was, impressed, nonetheless. Few survive his nihil ritual. Fewer still retain enough sanity to retreat strategically. This confirmed what Millicent had told him. Deku glanced at the cocoon again. And Miquella? Lord Mog's beloved sleeps, transforming into something glorious. When he awakens, their dynasty shall, the phantom never finished. A blade of pure golden light pierced through its mask from behind. As it dissolved into bloody mist, a figure stepped from the shadows, a knight in ornate armor with flowing red hair. Tarnished, the knight addressed Deku, sword still gleaming with golden energy. "You speak too freely of Lady Malenia." Deku shifted into a defensive stance. "You know her. I am Finley, Knight of the Haligtree. I carried Lady Malenia back from the Kaled battlefield when the rot overtook her consciousness." The knight studied Deku. "You are the one they call the Hero Lord. Godric's bane." "Just Deku is fine," he replied, relaxing slightly. "I've been looking for Malenia. I think I might be able to help with her condition." Finley's laugh held no humor. "Many have made such claims. Physicians, sorcerers, priests, all failed. I'm not claiming to cure the rot. But I understand what it's like to have power that destroys your body when used. I've been there." The knight's posture shifted, interest piqued. Lady Malenia returned to the Haligtree after her unsuccessful attempt to retrieve Lord Miquella. The rot advances faster now, her control slipping after using its power against Mog. "Then there's no time to waste. Can you guide me to the Haligtree?" Finley considered him. "Few are granted passage to our sanctuary. But..." She gestured to the medallion Millicent had given him, visible on his belt. "You bear the mark of one connected to Our Lady. I will show you the secret path, though what welcome you'll receive, I cannot say." They left Mogwin Palace through hidden passages that bypassed the worst of its defenses. Finley proved to be a valuable ally, her intimate knowledge of the land between realms creating shortcuts Deku would never have found alone. As they traveled, she shared more about Malenia's condition. How the goddess had been born afflicted by an outer god's influence. How she had trained relentlessly to contain it, developing a fighting style that emphasized precision to compensate for her weakening body. How her twin brother Miquella had created the unalloyed gold needles that slowed the rot's progress. And Mog took him while she was unconscious after fighting Radon, Deku summarized. Why? What does he want with Miquella? Lord Miquella is special. Eternally young, yet possessing wisdom beyond sages. His Empyrean status makes him capable of godhood, while his natural affinity for influencing others through devotion makes him dangerous. Mog seeks to corrupt that power, to elevate himself through unnatural communion. The path to the Haligtree required navigating the secret consecrated snowfield and solving the puzzle of the Haligtree town ruins. When they finally reached the Haligtree itself, Deku stood in awe. The massive tree rose from a chasm, its branches creating an entire ecosystem. Unlike the golden Erdtree in the distance, the Haligtree's leaves showed patterns of both vibrant life and creeping decay, beauty and rot coexisting in painful balance. It's dying, Deku realized. Without Lord Miquella's presence, the balance cannot hold, Finley confirmed. The rot encroaches faster each day. Many sections have already been abandoned to infection. The journey up through the Haligtree tested every skill Deku had developed. Rot-infested ballistas fired massive bolts. Putrid avatars spewed corrupt essence. Clean rot knights, Malenia's personal guard, challenged every step forward. Halfway up, they found Millicent fighting for her life against invading spirits. Deku leapt into the fray, one for all blazing gold around his limbs as he drove back the attackers. Impeccable timing, she gasped, clutching her prosthetic arm. The rot had visibly spread, veining her neck and face with scarlet traceries. You don't look well, Deku observed, concerned. My journey nears its end, one way or another. Her smile was pained. Lady Finley, you've brought him directly to the heart of our sanctuary? Finley nodded. He bears your token, and his reputation precedes him. The Hero Lord may be what Lady Malenia needs now. Millicent's gaze sharpened. You still intend to help her? Even seeing what the rot does firsthand? Especially seeing it, Deku confirmed. No one should face this alone. Something in Millicent's expression softened. Then take this. She removed a golden needle from her arm, instantly, the rot's progress visible accelerated. This is unalloyed gold. Crafted by Lord Miquella himself. It slows the rot. Lady Malenia used them throughout her body before Khalid. Deku accepted the needle reverently, understanding its significance. Thank you. But won't you need this? Millicent shook her head. My path lies elsewhere now. If you truly wish to help Lady Malenia, that will serve you better than it serves me. They parted ways, Millicent heading toward a secluded branch while Deku and Finley continued upward. The knight explained how the Cleanrot Knights all carried similar golden needles, sacrificing themselves gradually to maintain their service to Malenia. Devotion demands sacrifice, Finley stated simply when Deku questioned the practice. At the highest level of the Haligtree, they found evidence of recent battle, branches shattered by tremendous force, scarlet flowers blooming where blood had spilled. The entrance to Malenia's chamber lay ahead, guarded by the last intact Cleanrot Knights. This is where I leave you, Finley announced. What transpires between you and Our Lady must be witnessed by none. You're not coming in. Lady Malenia requested solitude after her return. Even we who are most devoted respect her wishes. Finley placed a hand on Deku's shoulder. She will likely attack first and question later. Her mind fluctuates with the rot's progression. Deku nodded, understanding. Thank you for guiding me here. Prove worthy of the trust we've placed in you, Hero Lord. With that, Finley took her position among the other knights, leaving Deku to approach the massive doors alone. He pushed them open, entering a circular chamber flooded with watery light. Flower petals drifted through the air. In the center, seated with her back to him, was a figure in golden armor. Long red hair flowed down her back, and beside her lay a prosthetic arm holding an enormous sword. Another visitor to my chamber of clean rot, she spoke without turning. Her voice carried authority despite its weariness. Have you come to test yourself against the undefeated blade? To claim my great rune? Or merely to gawk at the goddess brought low by disease? None of those, Deku answered, stepping forward cautiously. I'm here because I think I understand something of what you're going through. She turned then, rising in a single fluid motion and reattaching her prosthetic arm with practiced ease. Deku saw her clearly for the first time, tall, regal, her face a mask of dignified suffering. Where her right arm joined the golden prosthetic, scarlet infection visibly pulsed. Most striking was her calm, evaluating gaze from eyes that had witnessed centuries of pain. You understand nothing, Malenia replied, lifting her blade. But if battle is what you seek, tarnished, I shall oblige. She moved with blinding speed, closing the distance between them before Deku could speak another word. Only his trained reflexes and one for all saved him from being impaled, as he twisted aside from her thrust. Wait. I just want to talk. He dodged another lightning-fast strike, analyzing her movements. Despite her affliction, her swordsmanship showed no weakness, each move precise, economical, deadly. Talk is meaningless, she replied, executing a flurry of stabs that forced Deku into continuous evasion. Action reveals truth. Fine. If she needed to test him first, he could work with that. Deku activated full cowling, golden energy surrounding him as he matched her speed. Not attacking, just defending, looking for a way to end this without hurting her. Their dance continued across the chamber, Malenia's relentless, perfect aggression against Deku's analytical defense. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Where other opponents telegraphed their moves or tired, Malenia showed neither weakness. Each thrust flowed into the next slash, each dodge became a counterattack. You fight strangely, she observed during a momentary pause, circling him. No aggression. No greed. What manner of tarnished are you? I told you, I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to help. Help. She laughed, a sound both beautiful and terrible. Do you see this? She gestured to the scarlet bloom growing from her right shoulder. The rot consumes me from within. No medicine, prayer, or magic has slowed it. My brother's golden needles merely buy time. It's not just about stopping it, Deku replied, lowering his guard slightly. It's about control. Living with power that hurts you when used. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, perhaps. She lowered her sword a fraction. Explain. Deku took a breath. Where I come from, the power I wield, one for all, it broke my body every time I used it at first. Shattered bones, torn muscles. I had to learn control, to channel it through my whole body instead of letting it overflow destructively. A quaint analogy, but the rod is not merely power. It is corruption incarnate, an outer god's influence seeking dominion. But you've controlled it before, right? Before Kaled, before fighting Radon, you contained it, channeled it. The infection progressed, but slowly, manageably. Malenia studied him with newfound interest. Yes. Through discipline and Miquella's needles, I maintained balance. Until you had to unleash everything to fight Radon, Deku finished. And afterward, you couldn't fully contain it again. She nodded once, sharply. You are well informed for a tarnished so new to these lands. I pay attention. And I think I can help you find that control again. Why? Her question cut straight to the heart. What do you gain, tarnished? My great rune. My allegiance in your quest for the throne. I'm not from this world, Deku admitted. I was fighting in my own reality when something threw me here. I'm trying to understand this place, maybe find a way home. But while I'm here, I can't ignore people's suffering, whether they're villagers or demigods. Malenia was silent for a long moment, evaluating him. Then, with deliberate motion, she thrust her sword into the ground and sat cross-legged in the chamber's center. Show me, she commanded. Show me this control you speak of. Deku sat opposite her, close enough to converse but maintaining respectful distance. One for all flows through my entire body, he explained, activating his power at low intensity so the golden energy became visible across his skin. At first, I could only use it in explosive bursts that destroyed whatever limb I channeled it through. But I learned to spread it evenly, to let it flow naturally rather than forcing it. Malenia observed the energy patterns. The rot concentrates where I am weakest, the stumps of my missing limbs, old battle wounds, fatigue points. When I fight at full strength, I cannot simultaneously maintain the containment discipline. What if you don't think of them as separate tasks? Deku suggested. Not fighting versus containing, but a single, unified approach. He demonstrated, showing how one for all now integrated seamlessly with his movements rather than being a separate force he commanded. For hours, they exchanged techniques. Deku shared his experience developing full cowling and shoot style, adapting to his body's limitations. Malenia demonstrated the meditative forms she used to direct the rot's flow away from vital areas. Gradually, a tentative respect formed between them. Your approach has merit, Malenia finally admitted. Though the contexts differ significantly. Could I see? Deku requested gently. How the rot manifests when you're fighting at full strength. She hesitated, then nodded once. Rising to her feet, Malenia retrieved her blade and moved to the chamber's center. Stand back. The spores can infect even through proximity. Deku created distance but maintained his analytical observation. Malenia closed her eyes in concentration. When they opened again, power surged visibly through her. Her movements became impossibly fast, sword leaving afterimages as she executed a complex form. Simultaneously, scarlet energy bloomed around her prosthetics and wounds, fighting to spread further but contained within strict boundaries. For 30 seconds, she maintained this perfect balance, offensive power and containment discipline unified. Then, abruptly, she staggered, the rot surging past her control points before she forcibly suppressed it again. That's the moment, Deku noted. When offensive focus pulls resources from containment. Malenia nodded, breathing heavily. In prolonged combat, that moment comes repeatedly, each time with less recovery. You're treating them as competing priorities when they should be the same action. Deku approached cautiously. May I show you something? It might help to feel the difference. After a moment's consideration, she extended her hand, her real one, not the prosthetic. Deku gently took it, allowing a small amount of one for all's energy to flow between them. Not forcing, just offering. Feel how it moves, he guided. Not fighting against your body's natural energy, but harmonizing with it. Malenia's eyes widened slightly as she sensed the difference. It flows like water finding its level. Exactly. Not pushed or pulled, just directed. She withdrew her hand, contemplating. An interesting approach. Though whether it can be applied to an outer god's influence remains uncertain. It's worth trying, isn't it? Especially if it helps you fight at full strength without losing control. Malenia regarded him silently before speaking again. You mentioned finding your way home. Yet you detoured to assist a demigod who offered nothing but her blade against you. Curious priorities. Deku smiled slightly. Where I come from, heroes help people regardless of reward. It's kind of our thing. Hero, she tested the word. We have no such concept here. Only the strong and the weak, predators and prey, gods and servants. Maybe that's part of the problem with this world. The chamber fell silent except for the soft drift of flower petals. Finally, Malenia spoke again. You sought me for a purpose beyond this, assistance. Speak it plainly. Deku nodded. I learned you tried to rescue your brother from Mog but couldn't defeat him in his realm. I want to help you try again. Why? Because Mog kidnapped your brother, and that's wrong. Because from what I've heard, Miquella tried to create a place where people suffering from conditions like yours could find peace. That sounds like someone worth saving. Malenia studied him with increasing intensity. Many tarnished have offered alliance. All sought to use my strength for their ambitions. What makes you different? I'm not asking you to help me become Elden Lord or fight my battles. I'm offering to help you with what matters most to you, saving Miquella. Something shifted in her expression, subtle, but Deku had become adept at reading micro-expressions during his hero training. A softening around the eyes, the barest hint of hope quickly suppressed. Mog dwells in a realm steeped in blood flame, she stated. My rot and his blood create a volatile combination that weakens me disproportionately. Even at full strength, the environmental disadvantage proved decisive. Then we need a strategy that accounts for that, Deku replied, already thinking analytically. Neutralizing the environmental advantage, exploiting weaknesses in his fighting style, coordinating our different abilities. You speak as though victory is merely a puzzle requiring solution. Isn't it? Every opponent has patterns, preferences, blind spots. Malenia's lips curved in what might almost be a smile. You are a strange tarnished, Deku. Perhaps. She seemed to come to a decision. Rest here tonight. Tomorrow, we will attempt your integration technique. If it shows promise, I may consider your proposed alliance. It was more progress than he'd expected. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. The rot takes more than it gives, always. Proximity risks infection, and battle alongside me guarantees it. Consider carefully if your offer of assistance extends to such consequences. I've risked worse odds for less worthy causes, Deku replied simply. That night, he slept in an antechamber provided by the Cleanrot Knights, who regarded him with mixtures of suspicion and curiosity. Finley visited briefly, surprised by his survival. She actually listened to you, the knight observed. Remarkable. She's a good teacher too, Deku replied. Her understanding of body mechanics and energy flow is incredible. Lady Malenia trained for centuries to contain her affliction. Few appreciate the discipline required, they see only the fearsome warrior, not the constant battle she wages within. Deku nodded. That's why I think I can help. I fought that same battle, just with different stakes. The knights whisper that you seek to challenge Mog again, Finley said carefully. Lady Malenia barely escaped with her life last time. That's why we need a better plan. Deku pulled out his notebook, showing Finley his initial analysis of Mog's palace defenses. The blood pools are the primary environmental hazard. They amplify Mog's power while suppressing opponents. If we could neutralize that advantage somehow. Finley studied his notes with growing interest. There are methods. Certain incantations from the fire monks temporarily purify corrupted ground. With sufficient fire, even blood flame can be temporarily overwhelmed. They spent hours discussing tactics, Finley contributing her extensive knowledge of the lands between while Deku applied his analytical approach to combat planning. By dawn, they had the outline of a strategy. The following days established a routine. Mornings were spent on integration techniques, Deku helping Malenia adapt his full cowling concept to her rot containment. Afternoons focused on combat synchronization, their fighting styles blending in preparation for facing Mog together. Evenings were dedicated to strategy refinement with Finley and the other knights. Deku learned more about Malenia with each passing day. Despite her fearsome reputation, she possessed a quiet dignity and even flashes of dry humor. Her devotion to Miquella went beyond sibling loyalty, he was her moral compass, the gentle soul who balanced her warrior nature. Without him, she admitted, her purpose narrowed to battle alone. He sees potential for beauty even in corruption, she explained during a rare personal conversation. Where I would cut away infection, he sought to transform it into something beneficial. His Haligtree was meant to nurture all outcasts, all the unwanted children of the Golden Order. He sounds like someone I'd like to meet, Deku replied honestly. You would appreciate each other, I think. Something soft entered her voice. He always believed the strongest champions were those who fought for others rather than themselves. On the fifth day, breakthrough came. During their morning practice, Malenia successfully maintained both perfect offensive form and complete rot containment for 5 consecutive minutes, longer than ever before. "It works," she acknowledged, genuine surprise in her voice. "The integration approach, it creates efficiency I hadn't thought possible." Deku grinned. "Sometimes the best solutions come from outside perspectives." "Indeed." She studied him thoughtfully. "You've upheld your part of our accord. I will uphold mine. We shall confront Mog together." The preparations accelerated. Finley gathered fire-purifying materials from across the lands between. The Cleanrot Knights prepared specialized equipment designed to function in blood-soaked environments. Deku refined his understanding of One for All's capabilities in this world, developing new techniques specifically to counter Mog's blood attacks. Millicent visited once more before they departed, her condition visibly deteriorated without the golden needle. "I've chosen my path," she told Deku when he expressed concern. "Lady Malenia needs that needle more than I. To see her regain some measure of control, it gives my sacrifice meaning." On the eve of their departure, Deku found Malenia at the highest point of the Haligtree, gazing toward the distant Erdtree. Having second thoughts, he asked, joining her. "No. But clarity about motivation is essential before battle." She turned to face him. "I fight for Miquella, as always. But you, Tarnished, what do you truly seek? You claim to desire understanding of this world, yet involve yourself in conflicts not your own. Where I come from, there's a saying, meddling when you don't need to is the essence of being a hero. It's just, what I do. And after? If we succeed in rescuing Miquella? What then?" Deku considered. "I still need to understand how I got here and how I might get home. But honestly, I'll probably keep helping people along the way. It's kind of a habit." Malenia nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Tomorrow, then. We face the Lord of Blood in his domain." The journey to Mogwin Palace was different this time. With Malenia's knowledge and Finley's preparation, they bypassed many of the dangers Deku had faced before. The Cleanrot Knights formed a vanguard, clearing paths through blood cultists and abominations. At the palace entrance proper, Malenia paused, visibly steeling herself. The scarlet infection pulsed more actively near the blood flame atmosphere. "The environmental corruption begins here," she noted. "Last time, it progressively weakened my containment." Deku nodded, reaching into his pack. "That's why we have these." He produced crystalline vessels filled with golden red liquid, fire prelate oil mixed with purifying agents. Finley's special recipe. Should neutralize the blood pools long enough for our approach. The strategy worked initially. As they progressed deeper into the palace, the knights deployed the purifying fire at critical junctures, creating safe pathways through otherwise debilitating blood swamps. Malenia maintained her newfound integration technique, keeping the rot contained despite the challenging environment. Then everything went sideways. "Intruders in the dynasty's cradle." The voice boomed through the palace, shaking blood from the walls. "My beloved shall not be disturbed." Suddenly, the blood pools throughout the palace surged with renewed vigor, overwhelming the purifying fire. Spectral knights materialized in overwhelming numbers. The carefully planned approach collapsed into desperate fighting. "He's activated the palace's full defenses," Malenia shouted over the chaos. "We must press forward before he completes whatever ritual he's attempting." Deku and Malenia fought back to back, her perfect swordplay complementing his adaptive combat style. The Cleanrot Knights formed a defensive perimeter, buying them time to advance toward the central chamber where Miquella's cocoon hung. As they neared it, Deku felt a strange resonance in his One for All energy, almost like it was responding to something ahead. Malenia noticed his reaction. "You feel it too?" Miquella's influence. Even imprisoned, his power reaches outward. They burst into the central chamber to find a horrifying scene. Mog, Lord of Blood, a towering figure with massive horns and wings, stood before the cocoon, arms raised as he chanted in an eldritch language. The cocoon pulsed with unnatural light, and within, the silhouette of a child-sized figure writhed in apparent agony. "Too late, sister." Mog roared, turning to face them. Blood dripped from his trident, which glowed with malevolent power. The communion progresses. My beloved awakens to our dynasty. Release him, Mog, Malenia demanded, sword raised. This desecration ends now. Desecration? Mog laughed, the sound bubbling like boiling blood. I elevate him. Where you would keep him weak and childlike, I grant him godhood through blood. Deku studied the scene rapidly, noting details. The cocoon was suspended by chains that ran through mechanical winches. Mog stood in a central blood pool that seemed to pump power directly into him. Most importantly, Miquella's hand pressed against the cocoon membrane, fingers spread in what looked like a deliberate pattern rather than random struggle. Malenia, he whispered, I think your brother's conscious in there. Look at his hand, that's not random movement. Her eyes narrowed, focusing on the detail he'd indicated. You're right. That's the old signal pattern we developed as children. He's trying to communicate. Before they could interpret further, Mog attacked. His trident hurled globules of blood that exploded on contact, while simultaneously, rings of blood flame erupted across the floor. The battle that followed was unlike anything Deku had experienced before. Mog fought with both brutish strength and cunning sorcery, switching tactics unpredictably. Worse, he could teleport through blood pools, appearing anywhere in the chamber without warning. Nihil. 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 With each shout, Mog cast blood spells that sought their very life essence, attempting to drain them from within. Deku countered with one for all at its highest sustainable output, using its golden energy to neutralize the blood curses before they could take hold. Malenia fought with perfect integration of offense and containment, her blade flashing almost too fast to see while the rot remained firmly under control. The chains. Deku called out between attacks. If we can break the chains holding the cocoon, he'll fall into the blood pool, Malenia countered. Too risky. Not if we time it right. I can catch him. Mog, sensing their plan, intensified his assault. My beloved remains here. His communion with me will birth a new age. Despite the Lord of Blood's ferocity, the coordination between Deku and Malenia proved superior. Where Mog attacked one, the other counterattacked from his blind spot. When blood pools threatened to overwhelm an area, Deku's speed or Malenia's acrobatics provided escape routes. His pattern is 3 teleports, then a major blood explosion, Deku analyzed aloud. After the third nihil, he's briefly vulnerable. Malenia nodded. I'll drive him to his ritual position. Be ready for the chains. Their synchronized attack drove Mog into his familiar pattern. One teleport, Malenia predicted his emergence point and was already slashing as he materialized. 2 teleports, Deku intercepted, landing a devastating kick that cracked one of the Lord's horns. 3 teleports, Mog appeared in the central pool, raising his trident for his ultimate blood ritual. Nihil. 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 The blood explosions rocked the chamber, but both Deku and Malenia were already moving. While she engaged Mog directly, blade against trident in a shower of sparks and blood, Deku leapt to the chamber's upper level where the chain mechanisms anchored. One for all, 100%. Golden energy surged through him at maximum output. In this world, he found he could sustain it briefly without injury, the power harmonizing perfectly with the strange grace that permeated everything. With devastating force, he shattered the chain mechanisms. The cocoon plummeted toward the blood pool, but Deku was already diving, calculations running through his mind. Trajectory, speed, intercept point. He caught the massive cocoon just above the blood's surface, its weight nearly crushing him despite one for all strength enhancement. Using the momentum, he redirected his fall toward a blood-free section of the chamber. No! Mog's howl of rage echoed as he attempted to disengage from Malenia. My beloved! Return him! Your attention remains here, Lord of Blood, Malenia replied coldly, her blade slicing through his wing membrane when he tried to pursue Deku. Safely away from the battle, Deku examined the cocoon up close. The membrane was translucent enough to see Miquella within, a figure with the proportions of a child but an oddly ancient face, eyes closed yet fingers still moving in that deliberate pattern. He's trying to tell us something, Deku realized. Remembering his encounters with code-based villains, he watched the finger movements carefully, recognizing a repetitive sequence. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps, pause, 4 taps. Meanwhile, the battle between Malenia and Mog reached its climax. The Lord of Blood, enraged by the theft of his beloved, abandoned all strategy for raw destructive power. Blood geysers erupted throughout the chamber. Cursed flames consumed everything they touched. Malenia maintained her integration technique flawlessly, containing the rot despite the environmental corruption while delivering precision strikes that gradually dismantled Mog's defenses. Where before she had weakened as the battle progressed, now she seemed to grow stronger, more focused. Impossible! Mog howled as her blade pierced his shoulder, black-red blood spurting. The blood flame should weaken you. I have learned control beyond your understanding, Malenia replied, executing a perfect riposte that severed one of his wings completely. Studying Miquella's finger patterns, Deku had a revelation. Not code, music. It's a song rhythm. He hummed the pattern, trying different melodies until suddenly the cocoon membrane resonated in response. As the haunting melody filled the chamber, Mog froze mid-attack, his eyes widening in what appeared to be genuine fear. No, no, not that song. He is mine. The distraction gave Malenia her opening. With a single perfect thrust, she drove her blade through Mog's chest, piercing where his heart should be. For my brother, she said simply. As Mog dissolved into blood and golden light, his great rune manifesting, Malenia rushed to the cocoon where Deku continued humming the melody. The lullaby of the Haligtree, she identified it, surprise evident. How did you? He was tapping it with his fingers. I think it's the key to opening this safely. Together, they continued the melody. Gradually, the cocoon membrane softened, becoming translucent, then transparent. Finally, it split open, releasing not blood but golden sap that smelled of honey and distant flowers. Inside lay Miquella, physically a child yet with ancient eyes that opened slowly, blinking against light they hadn't seen in ages. Sister, his voice was soft yet carried an undeniable authority. You came for me. And. His gaze shifted to Deku, curious, you brought a hero from another world. How extraordinary. You're aware of what happened? Deku asked, surprised. Time moves, differently, when communing with outer influences. Mog sought to accelerate my growth through blood, not understanding that forced evolution leads only to corruption. Miquella's small hand reached for his sister's. You've changed, Malenia. The rot, you've found new balance with it. Temporary, perhaps, she replied. But yes, thanks to this tarnished's insights. Miquella smiled weakly. Not insights alone. Genuine concern. I felt it even through the cocoon. He attempted to rise but faltered. Don't push yourself, Deku said, supporting him. Whatever Mog did, it's affected you physically. Indeed. My body requires recovery at the Haligtree. Miquella looked around the blood-soaked chamber. This place, its corruption runs deep. We should not linger. As they prepared to leave, Malenia collected Mog's great rune. For safekeeping, she explained. Such power should not be left for opportunists to claim. The return journey to the Haligtree proved challenging but manageable. Mog's death had thrown his followers into disarray, and the palace defenses functioned at minimal capacity. The surviving Cleanrot Knights formed an honor guard around Miquella, their devotion evident in every precise movement. Throughout the journey, Miquella observed Deku with undisguised fascination, asking questions about his world, his power, his motivations. Despite his childlike appearance, his intellect was clearly ancient and perceptive. "Your power," Miquella noted during a rest period, "it resonates differently than anything I've encountered. Neither drawn from outer gods nor from the Erdtree itself. Self-contained yet connective. It was passed down to me by my mentor," Deku explained. "One for all is meant to be transferred from person to person, growing stronger with each generation." Fascinating. In our world, inheritance is usually violent, taking through death rather than giving through choice. Back at the Haligtree, Miquella was placed in a healing chamber filled with golden sap. The sanctuary seemed to brighten with his return, the balance between growth and decay stabilizing noticeably. That evening, Malenia found Deku observing the Haligtree from a balcony overlooking its vast structure. "My brother wishes to speak with you tomorrow," she informed him. "He believes your presence here is not accidental. What do you think?" She considered before answering. "I think, that in centuries of existence, I have never encountered anyone who understood my struggle as you do. Whether chance or fate brought you here matters less than what you've accomplished." "We make a good team," Deku replied with a smile. "Your sword, my analysis, Mog didn't stand a chance once we coordinated." "Indeed." She hesitated, then continued. "The techniques you've shown me for integration, they've provided more control than I've had since before Caelid. It won't cure the rot, but it makes living with it manageable. I'm glad. No one should have to face that kind of burden alone." Something softened in her expression. "Is that truly how you see it? A burden to be shared rather than a weakness to be exploited?" "Of course. That's what heroes do where I come from, help people carry their burdens until they can bear them themselves." She was silent for a moment. This concept of hero, it has no equivalent here. The closest might be the loyal knight, but even then, the service is to a lord, not to people broadly. "Maybe that's something this world needs more of," Deku suggested. "Perhaps." She looked out over the Haligtree. "With Miquella's return, restoration can begin here. But beyond our sanctuary, the lands between remain fractured, suffering under warring demigods and the absence of proper order. Is that where the Elden Ring comes in?" Malenia mentioned restoring it could establish a new order. Malenia nodded. The ring governed fundamental laws of existence, life, death, order, chaos. When it shattered, these concepts became untethered, causing the current instability. And becoming Elden Lord means fixing that. Potentially. Though whose vision shapes that restoration matters greatly. She turned to face him directly. "Many seek the throne solely for power. Others, like my brother, envisioned a more inclusive order than the Golden Age provided. What order would you establish, tarnished hero?" Deku considered the question seriously. "One where power serves people rather than dominates them. Where differences are respected rather than purged. Where everyone has a chance to be the best version of themselves." He smiled slightly. "Basically, a world with heroes. An idealistic vision. Some would call it naive. Maybe. But isn't it better to reach for something better, even if it seems impossible? That's what my mentor taught me." Malenia studied him. "You continue to surprise me, Deku. Tomorrow, speak with Miquella. His perspective may provide clarity for your path forward." The following day, Deku entered the healing chamber where Miquella rested among golden flowers. Despite only a day's recovery, the eternally young demigod appeared stronger, his eyes clearer. "Ah, the hero arrives," Miquella greeted him warmly. "Please, sit. We have much to discuss." For hours, they talked about everything: Deku's world, his journey through the lands between, his encounters with other demigods, his theories about returning home. Miquella listened attentively, occasionally asking incisive questions that revealed his profound understanding of cosmic forces. Your arrival coincides with a pivotal moment in our world's cycle, Miquella noted. The Elden Ring awaits restoration, yet no clear successor to Marika has emerged. The Two Fingers seek a lord to maintain the Greater Will's dominion, while others, like my sister Ranni, pursue alternate futures entirely. You mean there are different possible outcomes depending on who becomes Elden Lord? Not just who, but how. The ring can be restored in different configurations, emphasizing different aspects of existence. Order, chaos, life, death, protection, isolation, all possible foundations for a new age. Deku thought about this. And what would your ideal configuration be? Miquella smiled sadly. I once dreamed of an order that embraced the unwanted, the cursed, the imperfect. Where afflictions like Malenia's rot or my eternal youth would not mark us as abominations but as worthy of dignity nonetheless. That sounds like something worth working toward. Indeed. Though my methods proved insufficient. He gestured to his small body. I attempted to grow beyond my limitations through the Haligtree, to become a vessel worthy of godhood without outer influence. Mog's intervention complicated matters. But you're recovering now. Couldn't you still pursue that vision? Miquella shook his head. The communion with Mog's blood has changed me in ways not immediately visible. My path to godhood is compromised. His ancient eyes fixed on Deku. But perhaps another could carry that vision forward. Me? Deku looked startled. But I'm not even from this world. Which gives you unique perspective. You speak of heroes, those who serve the many rather than dominate them. Such thinking is revolutionary here. Miquella leaned forward. Tell me, in your analysis of our world, what have you observed about its fundamental flaws? Power concentration, Deku replied without hesitation. Every problem I've encountered stems from too much power in too few hands, with ordinary people suffering the consequences of conflicts they have no say in. Precisely. Miquella's eyes lit up. The Golden Order's fundamental flaw was its rigidity, its insistence that hierarchy and perfection were synonymous. When flaws emerged, my sister's rot, my eternal youth, the existence of those who live in death, the Order condemned rather than accommodated. Their conversation continued, philosophical yet practical. Miquella shared insights into the greater will, the outer gods, and the true nature of the Elden Ring that clarified much of what Deku had experienced. In turn, Deku described his world's hero society, its strengths and failings, the balance between quirk regulation and freedom. Your power, one for all, Miquella said thoughtfully. It contains fragments of all previous wielders, growing stronger through accumulation rather than conquest. Fascinating contrast to our great runes, which must be torn from their bearers. It's meant to be passed on willingly, Deku confirmed. A torch rather than a trophy. Such concepts could revolutionize the lands between. Miquella's expression turned serious. There is something you should know. The disruption that brought you here, it wasn't random. What do you mean? During my imprisonment, I glimpsed connections between realms. Your arrival corresponds precisely with a cosmic alignment that occurs only at the turning of ages. I believe you were brought here deliberately, though by what force remains unclear. Deku absorbed this. So there's a reason I'm here. A purpose? Beyond question. Though whether that purpose aligns with your desires or those of some greater entity. Miquella spread his small hands. That remains to be discovered. That evening, a council convened in the Haligtree's central chamber. Miquella, though still recovering, presided from a flower-shaped throne. Malenia stood protectively beside him. Cleanrot knights maintained a perimeter, while Deku sat opposite the siblings. Our gratitude for your assistance cannot be overstated, Miquella began formally. You have saved me from Mog's corruption and helped my sister achieve greater balance with her affliction. The Haligtree and its denizens are in your debt. I was just doing what any hero would, Deku replied honestly. Nevertheless, we offer alliance. Miquella gestured to Malenia, who stepped forward. Should you continue your journey toward Elden Lord, she stated, know that the blade of Miquella stands with you. My sword is yours to command in righteous battle. The offer stunned Deku. That's. I'm honored, but your ultimate goal remains understanding how you arrived here and whether return to your world is possible, Miquella finished for him. Understandable. Yet consider this, the path to such knowledge likely leads through the same challenges that face potential lords. The mountaintops of giants, the forbidden lands, the Erdtree itself. You think becoming Elden Lord might somehow help me get home? I think, Miquella replied carefully, that the power to reshape reality itself might offer possibilities unavailable through conventional means. Deku considered this. There's someone else I wanted to speak with first, Ranni. She mentioned an age of stars that sounded different from the typical Elden Lord path. My sister pursues freedom from all outer influence, Miquella acknowledged. A worthy goal, though her methods involve certain, cosmic risks. By all means, seek her counsel. Multiple perspectives will only clarify your options. In the meantime, Malenia added, you are welcome here. The Haligtree offers sanctuary while you consider your path forward. Later that night, unable to sleep, Deku found himself back on the observation balcony. The massive branches of the Haligtree glowed with soft bioluminescence, while in the far distance, the Erdtree blazed golden against the night sky. Malenia joined him, moving silently despite her armor. Troubled thoughts. Just, processing everything. A few weeks ago, I was fighting villains in my world. Now I'm considering becoming Elden Lord in yours, with demigods offering alliance. He shook his head. It's a lot. Indeed. She stood beside him, her height making her an imposing presence even at rest. You've accomplished more in weeks than most tarnished manage in lifetimes. I had help. Good teachers. He glanced at her with a smile. As did I. She rarely smiled, but her expression softened. The integration technique continues to function well. Even near Miquella's concentrated power, which typically accelerates the rot, I maintain balance. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the distant glow of the Erdtree. If I do pursue becoming Elden Lord, Deku said eventually, what would you want to see in the new order? Beyond helping Miquella's vision, I mean. Malenia considered the question. Recognition that perfection is not prerequisite for worth. That affliction does not equate to abomination. She gestured to her prosthetic limbs. I was born accursed, yet fought to remain worthy of my lineage. Many others receive no such opportunity, condemned for circumstances beyond their control. In my world, there was a time when people with quirks were feared and persecuted, Deku shared. It took heroes showing that these differences could benefit society for attitudes to change. Heroes again, Malenia noted. This concept truly forms the foundation of your worldview. It's who I am, Deku replied simply. Even here, even without knowing if I can get home. I can't stop trying to help people. It's just, part of me now. A worthy part. Her voice held unexpected warmth. Few tarnished maintain such principles when power beckons. The conversation shifted to practical matters, the regions Deku had yet to explore, the challenges that awaited beyond the mountaintops, strategies for confronting the remaining demigods. Throughout, Malenia offered insights drawn from centuries of experience, while Deku contributed fresh tactical approaches. We should rest, she eventually suggested. Tomorrow brings new challenges, whatever path you choose. As they turned to leave, Deku paused. Thank you, Malenia. Not just for the alliance offer, but for trusting me enough to try my suggestions. I know that couldn't have been easy. Trust is earned, she replied simply. You earned mine when you sought understanding rather than conquest, when you risked yourself for my brother without guarantee of reward. She hesitated, then added, few in my long existence have approached me as an equal rather than goddess or monster. It is refreshing. Morning brought clarity. After meditation and a final conversation with Miquella, Deku reached a decision. I need to speak with Ranni, he announced to the siblings. Her perspective on the greater will and outer gods might help me understand my situation better. But afterward, I'd like to accept your alliance offer. A wise approach, Miquella approved. Knowledge before commitment. Then we shall accompany you, Malenia stated. It wasn't a question. My brother remains somewhat weakened, and the journey to Ranni's domain traverses dangerous territory. Are you sure? I don't want to pull you away from the Haligtree when it's just beginning to recover. The Haligtree stands stronger with Miquella's return, she replied. And its protection extends beyond physical presence. We can better serve its future by securing a favorable outcome for all the lands between. And so, an unprecedented alliance formed, a hero from another world, the undefeated Blade, and the Empyrean of unwavering compassion. Together, they departed the Haligtree, setting course for Ranni's domain with new purpose. Rumors spread across the lands between. The Tarnished who defeated both Godric and Mog now traveled with two of the most powerful demigods. Some called him Usurper, others Liberator. But everywhere, the name Hero Lord followed in his wake, igniting something long absent in this shattered realm, hope. As they traversed the lakes of Liurnia, Deku couldn't help but reflect on how far he'd come from his bewildered arrival. He'd learned the rules of this world, challenged its assumptions, and found unexpected connections with beings of immense power and complexity. Whatever came next, whether facing Ranni's cosmic ambitions or the mysteries of the Erdtree itself, he would approach it as he always had, analyzing, adapting, and above all, remaining true to the hero he aspired to be, regardless of which world he found himself in. Malenia, walking beside him with newfound balance and purpose, seemed to sense his thoughts. Forward, hero, she said simply. The path unfolds before us. And together, they continued toward the next chapter of their journey. Chapter 3, The Age of Stars and Grace. The journey to Ranni's domain took them through the mist-shrouded heights of Liurnia. Deku led the way, with Malenia keeping pace beside him while Miquella rode a spectral steed conjured through some arcane means. The unlikely trio drew stares from the few travelers they encountered, many prostrating themselves before the demigods or fleeing in terror. Your people seem afraid of you, Deku observed after a group of merchants practically dove off the road at their approach. Fear and worship are two sides of the same coin in the lands between, Miquella replied, his ancient eyes watching the retreating figures. The Golden Order taught that demigods were to be revered from afar, not approached as equals. A convenient teaching for maintaining distance between rulers and ruled, Deku noted. Malenia nodded. You understand quickly. Such separation serves those in power, rarely those without it. As they ascended toward Kuria Manor, Deku briefed the siblings on his previous encounters with Ranni. She offered an alliance before, but I wanted to understand more about this world first, he explained. Her vision, this age of stars, seems to involve cutting ties with the greater will completely. My sister always sought freedom, Miquella mused. Even as children, she rebelled against destiny. When chosen as an Empyrean, a potential successor to our mother, she rejected the Two Fingers guidance entirely. By killing her physical form, Malenia added. A radical solution. Deku paused mid-step. Wait, what? Killing her physical form? The dull body you've seen is not Ranni's original form, Miquella explained. She orchestrated the Night of Black Knives, when her flesh was destroyed but her soul preserved. A desperate but effective means of escaping the greater will's direct influence. That's extreme, Deku muttered, making mental notes. The more he learned about the demigods, the more complex their motivations became. Kuria Manor loomed ahead, its stone walls crawling with those disturbing hand creatures that had so unnerved Deku on his first visit. This time, however, the hands retreated at their approach, sensing the demigod's power. At the manor's far side, they found Ranni's rise just as Deku had left it. The spectral servants, e.g., Blade, and Saluvis, awaited at the tower's base, their expressions shifting from caution to astonishment as they recognized his companions. Lady Malenia. Lord Miquella. E.g., the giant blacksmith, stepped forward with a formal bow. This is unexpected. We seek audience with your mistress, Malenia stated, her tone leaving no room for refusal. Blade, the wolf-headed warrior, studied them with intelligent eyes. Our lady mentioned you might return, he told Deku. But not with such distinguished companions. Is she available? Deku asked. Above, Blade nodded toward the tower's peak. Though I should warn you, she's been in a peculiar mood since discovering certain celestial alignments. Proceed with caution. As they climbed the spiral staircase, Miquella explained in hushed tones, Ranni and I maintained correspondence through the ages, though our methods were necessarily secretive. Her pursuit of cosmic freedom and my quest for a more inclusive order often aligned, though our approaches differed dramatically. She never mentioned that connection, Deku noted. My sister guards her alliances carefully, Malenia replied. Trust comes difficult to one who orchestrated her own death to escape manipulation. At the tower's summit, they found Ranni seated before a table covered with star charts and arcane instruments. Her porcelain doll face turned toward them, blue-white eyes widening at the sight of their unlikely group. Well, her melodic voice carried both surprise and amusement, the tarnished returns, and with such notable company. Miquella, freed from blood imprisonment. Malenia, seemingly in greater balance with her affliction. Her gaze settled on Deku. You've been busy, hero. I told you I needed to understand this world better before considering alliances, Deku replied with a slight smile. Learning from different perspectives seemed the best approach. Indeed. Ranni gestured to additional chairs that hadn't been there moments before. Please, be seated. This conversation promises to be fascinating. The four of them formed a circle, Ranni with her 4 arms folded precisely, Malenia maintaining perfect posture despite her prosthetics, Miquella somehow commanding attention despite his childlike stature, and Deku between them, notepad ready. I'll speak plainly, Ranni began. Your arrival in these lands was no accident, Tarnished. The cosmic alignment that brought you here occurs only at pivotal moments in our world cycle. Miquella mentioned something similar, Deku confirmed. So someone or something brought me here deliberately. More accurately, the confluence of powers seeking to influence our world's next iteration created a disturbance that drew you across realities, Ranni explained. A cosmic accident with purpose, if you will. The question remains why, Malenia interjected. Why this particular hero from this particular world? Ranni's porcelain features couldn't smile, but her eyes brightened with something like satisfaction. Perhaps because his power operates on principles completely foreign to our reality. One for all, you call it. A power willingly passed rather than brutally claimed, such concepts don't exist within the greater will's paradigm. Which makes you unpredictable, Miquella added, to both the 2 fingers and the outer gods vying for control. Deku absorbed this, scribbling notes. So I'm here because I'm outside the system. A variable no one accounted for. Precisely, all 3 demigods answered simultaneously, then exchanged surprised glances. Well, Ranni continued after a moment, it seems we share certain perspectives, despite our different paths. Which brings us to why we're here, Deku said. I've heard your vision for an age of stars, Ranni. I've learned about Miquella's aspirations for the Haligtree. What I'm wondering is whether these visions could somehow align rather than compete. Silence fell over the tower as Ranni considered him, her head tilting slightly. An interesting proposition. Most seek a single path to lordship, not collaboration. Where I come from, the greatest achievements always come through people working together, not competing for dominance, Deku replied. Even All Might, the greatest hero, needed support from countless others. Tell me, Ranni's focus sharpened, what order would you establish, were you to claim the throne of Elden Lord? Deku took a deep breath. One where power serves rather than dominates. Where differences are respected rather than purged. Where everyone has the chance to be the best version of themselves. He smiled slightly. A world with heroes. Heroes again, Ranni observed. This concept fascinates me. Not knights sworn to lords, not champions seeking glory, but individuals who stand for something greater. She turned to Miquella. Not unlike your original vision for the Haligtree, brother, not mine. Indeed, Miquella nodded. A sanctuary where worth isn't measured by adherence to rigid order but by contribution to collective well-being. His ancient eyes studied Deku. Your hero society and my Haligtree share philosophical foundations, despite emerging from entirely different worlds. Malenia, who had remained silent, finally spoke. And your Age of Stars, sister? How does it accommodate such concepts? My path seeks freedom from divine manipulation, Ranni replied. The greater will imposes its concept of order from above, allowing no true self-determination. I would take order itself into the stars, creating distance that allows genuine choice to flourish. Deku's analytical mind raced, connecting concepts. So Miquella seeks inclusive community, Malenia represents protection for the vulnerable, and Ranni pursues freedom from external control. He looked between them. These aren't competing visions, they're complementary. The demigods exchanged glances, centuries of history and conflict passing silently between them. Finally, Ranni broke the silence. Audacious, she said, but without mockery. Yet not entirely implausible. The Elden Ring, when restored, could theoretically incorporate multiple fundamental principles rather than establishing a single dominant order. A balanced configuration, Miquella mused, eyes brightening. Not the rigid hierarchy of the Golden Order, nor complete cosmic withdrawal, but something between. Integration rather than dominance, Malenia added, glancing meaningfully at Deku. As with containing the rot. Deku nodded, excitement building. Exactly. Instead of one vision erasing all others, what if the new order incorporated the best elements of each? He turned to Ranni. Freedom from manipulation, then Miquella, inclusion despite differences, finally Malenia, and protection for all, not just the strong. The tower fell silent again as the demigods considered. Deku held his breath, wondering if he'd overstepped. These were beings who had lived for centuries, their conflicts shaped the very land itself. Who was he, a newcomer, to suggest compromises to their lifelong aspirations? To his surprise, it was Malenia, the most martial and uncompromising of the three, who spoke first. I have witnessed the Tarnished in battle, she stated formally. He fights not for glory but purpose. Analyzes rather than dominates. Seeks understanding before victory. Her golden eye fixed on Deku. If any could forge such an integrated path, perhaps it is one who embodies integration himself. Miquella nodded. The hero has proven his intent through actions, rescuing me without seeking reward, helping Malenia control her affliction rather than exploit it, approaching Ranni as equal rather than subject. All eyes turned to Ranni, whose porcelain features remained unreadable. Finally, she extended one of her 4 hands, palm up. To attempt the impossible with full awareness of its improbability, she said, is either supreme foolishness or the height of courage. A soft blue light glowed in her palm. Let us discover which applies to our hero's vision. Deku placed his hand over hers without hesitation. Malenia added her flesh hand, and Miquella completed the circle. Energy surged between them, golden grace, scarlet rot contained within boundaries, cool blue starlight, and the vibrant green gold of one for all. An accord, then, Ranni declared. 3 demigods and a hero from beyond, seeking to forge a path hitherto unimagined. The real question, Malenia noted practically, is how to proceed. The path to the Elden Ring remains blocked by the thorns of the Erdtree. Even with our combined strength, direct assault would fail. The giant's flame, Ranni replied. The only fire capable of burning the Erdtree. It requires reaching the mountaintops and conducting the cardinal sin, setting the Erdtree ablaze to clear the path forward. A desperate measure, Miquella frowned. Though perhaps necessary given the stagnation that has consumed our world. Before we decide, Deku interjected, I need to understand one thing clearly. Who or what exactly awaits us within the Erdtree? I've heard mentions of Queen Marika, Radagon, the Elden beast, but nothing concrete. The demigods exchanged uncomfortable glances. Our mother, Miquella began carefully, Queen Marika, shattered the Elden ring for reasons known only to her. But she is also Radagon, Malenia finished. Two beings in one, or perhaps one being in two forms. Our father and our mother simultaneously. A divine secret kept even from most demigods, Ranni added. Marika the Eternal and Radagon the Golden are one entity, though they existed separately for much of history. Their unification came after Radagon's first marriage to Rennala ended. Deku's mind reeled. So you're saying we'll be facing your parents, whatever, at the end of this? The being who awaits within the Erdtree likely retains little of either Marika or Radagon as they once were, Miquella explained gently. After shattering the Elden ring, Mother was imprisoned within the Erdtree by the greater will as punishment. What remains may be more vessel than person, a shell containing the broken ring itself. And the Elden beast? The greater will's direct vassal, Ranni's voice hardened. A creature of pure order, sent to ensure this world's compliance. Should we threaten the current paradigm significantly, it will emerge to preserve the greater will's dominion. Deku took notes furiously, mind already formulating strategies. So we potentially face both the physical manifestation of this world's god and some kind of cosmic enforcement creature. Hence why previous Tarnished failed, Malenia confirmed. Even those who fought their way to the throne lacked the power to overcome these final guardians. But perhaps, Miquella said thoughtfully, a different approach might succeed where brute force has failed. The nature of order itself is our true opponent, not merely its representatives. Their planning session extended through the day and into night. Each contributed unique knowledge, Ranni explaining cosmic principles that govern the greater will's influence, Miquella detailing the structure of the Elden ring itself, Malenia providing tactical assessments of the path ahead, and Deku synthesizing it all through his analytical perspective. By dawn, they had forged not just an alliance but a comprehensive plan. The mountaintops first, Ranni summarized. The giant's forge must be lit to burn the Erdtree's thorns. Then through Lendl to the Erdtree's heart, where we'll confront what remains of Marika/Radagon and potentially the Elden beast itself. And if we succeed, Miquella added, we attempt something unprecedented, a collaborative restoration of the Elden ring incorporating multiple fundamental principles rather than establishing a single dominant order. If such restoration proves impossible, Malenia cautioned, we must be prepared for difficult choices. Deku nodded seriously. Let's focus on the steps ahead first. The mountaintops, then the forge, then the Erdtree. We'll solve each problem as it comes. As they departed Ranni's tower, Blade approached them. Our Lady has shared your accord with us, the Wolf Knight said, bowing to the group. I offer my blade to your cause. As do I, e.g. the blacksmith stepped forward. My forge stands ready to strengthen your equipment for the trials ahead. Even Solovis, most reluctant of Ranni's servants, offered assistance in the form of special potions to resist cosmic influences, though his manner remained haughty and suspicious. With reinforcements and preparations complete, the unlikely fellowship set forth toward the forbidden reaches of the mountaintops of the giants. Their journey attracted attention throughout the lands between. Settlements they passed through erupted in either celebration or panic at the sight of three demigods traveling with the now legendary Tarnished hero. In a village near the Grand Lift of Rold, a crowd gathered to witness their passage. Children darted forward to touch Miquella's robes, believing his blessing could cure ailments. Rather than continuing forward, Miquella surprised Deku by stopping to address the villagers directly. Your suffering has not gone unnoticed, the eternally young demigod announced. The age of abandonment nears its end. Not through conquest or subjugation, but through a new vision of what our world could become. The villagers listened in awe as Miquella spoke of hope and renewal. Meanwhile, Malenia noticed Deku watching her brother with admiration. He always possessed the greater wisdom, she said quietly. Were I protected through strength, he nurtured through compassion. You complement each other, Deku observed. Like All Might and Sir Nightai in my world, different approaches serving the same goal. Malenia considered this. Perhaps. Though I've often wondered whether my sword truly protected what mattered most, or merely preserved it in stasis. Protection creates space for growth, Deku replied. It's not about keeping things unchanged, it's about giving people the safety to evolve on their own terms. Something shifted in her expression, subtle, but Deku had become adept at reading her minute facial changes. A softening around the eyes, a slight relaxation of perpetual vigilance. Your perspective continues to offer reconsideration of long-held assumptions, she said finally. Their journey through the consecrated snowfield proved less treacherous than Deku's first crossing. With Ranni's knowledge of hidden paths and Miquella's influence over the land itself, they avoided the worst blizzards and ambush points. Even so, the bitter cold and treacherous terrain took their toll. During a rest period in an abandoned church, Deku found Miquella examining his hero costume with curiosity. The materials are unlike anything in our world, the young old demigod observed. Designed specifically for your abilities, yes. My friend Melissa created it, Deku explained, suddenly hit with a wave of homesickness. It's reinforced to handle one for all's power without tearing apart, plus it has these gauntlets for focusing impacts. Miquella nodded thoughtfully. You miss your world greatly. Yeah, Deku admitted. My friends, my mom, my mentors. I wonder if they think I'm dead, or if time even passes the same way between dimensions. If we succeed in our endeavor, Miquella said carefully, the reconfigured Elden ring might offer possibilities for cross-dimensional connection. The boundaries between realities are not absolute, your presence here proves that. Deku looked up hopefully. You think I might find a way home? I think, Miquella replied with gentle precision, that restoring fundamental cosmic principles creates opportunities previously unimaginable. Whether that includes your return home, remains to be discovered. Later that evening, Deku found Ranni outside, her ethereal form seemingly unbothered by the cold as she studied the stars. The celestial alignments accelerate, she noted without turning. Our window of opportunity approaches its zenith. Is that good or bad? Both, perhaps. She gestured upward. See that constellation? The amber draft. Its position indicates maximum potential for cosmic restructuring, ideal for our purposes. But it also signals when the greater will's attention focuses most intensely on this realm. Deku joined her, looking up at stars that formed patterns unfamiliar to his world. So we'll have the best chance of succeeding, but also face the strongest opposition. A succinct assessment, Ranni agreed. Your analytical mind serves you well, hero. They stood in companionable silence for a moment before Ranni spoke again, her tone unexpectedly personal. I have existed in isolation for centuries, she said quietly. By necessity and design. To pursue freedom from divine manipulation required severing most connections. Sounds lonely, Deku observed. Loneliness implies desire for company, she corrected. I cultivated detachment, not merely solitude. Yet. She turned her porcelain face toward him. Your concept of heroism challenges assumptions I considered immutable. That one might wield great power primarily for others' benefit rather than personal advancement, such thinking is revolutionary in a world shaped by ambition and conquest. It's not revolutionary where I come from, Deku replied. Heroes like All Might showed us that true strength comes from protecting others. Perhaps that is why you were drawn here, Ranni mused. Not despite your heroic nature but because of it. A cosmic counterbalance to centuries of selfish ambition. The next morning brought them to the entrance of the grand lift of Rold, the massive mechanical elevator that would carry them to the mountaintops. Ancient giants stood frozen in eternal guard, their expressions twisted in long-forgotten agony. "My mother's work," Ranni explained, noticing Deku's disturbed expression. "After conquering the giants, she ensured their eternal punishment as warning against defiance." "That's horrible," Deku couldn't hide his revulsion. "The Golden Order tolerated no challenges," Miquella added solemnly. "Conformity was mandated, not invited." The lift activated under Malena's guidance, who materialized briefly to offer further context about the ancient conflict between Marika and the giants, how their fell god represented one of the few powers capable of threatening the Erdtree's dominance. As they ascended into the bitter heights, Deku felt one for all resonating strangely, almost humming within him. The golden energy seemed to respond to something in these ancient mountains. "Your power senses the remnants of the giant's flame," Malenia observed, watching golden sparks dance across his skin. "Interesting. Perhaps it recognizes another force passed from bearer to bearer." The mountaintops themselves presented challenges beyond mere climate. Ancient constructs guarded forgotten fortresses. Dragons soared between peaks, their breath freezing entire valleys in seconds. Spectral knights appeared from snowstorms, attacking without warning or mercy. Through it all, the Fellowship adapted. Deku's analytical combat style complemented Malenia's precision swordplay. Ranni's cosmic sorceries cleared paths through impossible terrain. Miquella's presence seemed to calm even the most aggressive beasts, allowing safe passage where battle would otherwise be inevitable. At Fire Giant's Peak, they confronted the last survivor of the ancient race, a massive, lumbering creature with a screaming face embedded in its chest. Unlike the mindless monsters Deku had faced before, the Fire Giant's eyes held ancient intelligence and immeasurable sorrow. "We need not destroy him," Miquella suggested as they observed from a distance. "Perhaps communion instead." Before they could form a plan, the giant spotted them. Roaring in ancient hatred, it tore its own leg off to use as a weapon and charged toward them with surprising speed. "So much for diplomacy," Deku muttered, activating full cowling. The battle pushed their coordination to new limits. The Fire Giant's massive scale meant conventional attacks barely registered. Its command of flame created ever-shifting battlefield conditions. Worse, the creature seemed to specifically target Miquella, perhaps recognizing Marika's bloodline. "We need to work together," Deku called out, narrowly avoiding a boulder-sized snowball. "Ranni, can you suppress his flames temporarily?" The witch nodded, for arms weaving complex patterns. "Momentarily, but you must strike precisely when I signal." Malenia positioned herself protectively near Miquella. "Target the ankle of his remaining leg," she advised. "The binding magic is weakest there." Deku analyzed the giant's movements, noticing how it shifted weight to compensate for its missing limb. There, a pattern emerged. Every third attack, it briefly lost balance, creating a 1-second vulnerability. "On my mark," Ranni called, her sorcery gathering like condensed stars between her palms. The Fire Giant raised its improvised club for a devastating swing. Deku counted silently, 1, 2, 3 movements in the pattern, then the momentary imbalance. "Now!" Ranni's spell erupted, temporarily suppressing the giant's flames. Simultaneously, Malenia executed a perfect blade dance that distracted the creature's attention. Deku, channeling one for all at maximum sustainable output, launched himself directly at the exposed ankle. Detroit Smash. His fist connected with devastating force precisely as the giant's weight shifted. The remaining leg buckled, sending the massive creature crashing to the ground. Rather than delivering a killing blow, Miquella approached the fallen giant, hands raised peacefully. Last of the ancient race, he addressed it in a language Deku didn't understand. "We seek not your extinction but your fire's purpose." To Deku's amazement, the giant responded, not in words but in a series of rumbling vibrations that Miquella seemed to comprehend. "He will guide us to the forge," Miquella translated, turning back to the group. "In exchange for our promise that his flame will birth something new, not merely restore the old order." The wounded giant led them to an ancient caldera atop the highest peak. At its center stood a massive forge, long dormant, designed to channel fire of cosmic significance. "The cardinal sin awaits our decision," Ranni stated, gazing into the empty forge. "To burn the Erdtree is to reject the current order entirely. There will be no returning from this path. The real sin would be allowing stagnation to continue," Miquella replied. "Sometimes creation requires destruction first." "Malenia spoke of carrying me to the foot of the Erdtree," Deku remembered. "She said this was her purpose." As if summoned by her name, Malenia materialized beside them, her expression solemn. "You've reached the forge," she observed. "The moment of decision has arrived." "You mentioned sacrificing yourself to light the flame," Deku said, concern evident. "Is there no alternative?" Malenia smiled sadly. "My body was created for this purpose. To carry the flame and ignite the thorns that bar the path forward." "No," Miquella interjected firmly. "There is another way." He turned to the fire giant, who watched them with ancient eyes. "One born of the flame itself could direct it without destruction." The giant rumbled something that made Miquella nod. "He agrees. A portion of his essence, freely given, can ignite the forge without requiring Malenia's sacrifice." "Are you certain?" Malenia asked, hope and skepticism warring in her expression. "The old ways demanded sacrifice," Miquella replied. "Our new path seeks alternatives to such absolutes." The ritual that followed merged technologies and magics beyond Deku's understanding. The fire giant contributed a portion of the primordial flame burning within its chest face. Miquella provided unalloyed gold to channel and direct the fire. Ranni's cosmic knowledge ensured the flame's trajectory toward the Erdtree. Malenia offered her knowledge of the Erdtree's defenses, identifying vulnerable points in the thorny barrier. At the ritual's climax, the forge erupted with flame unlike anything Deku had witnessed, not the red-orange of conventional fire, but something more fundamental. It burned in impossible colors, its heat felt not on skin but in soul. "It's working," Malenia whispered in awe. "The cardinal sin unfolds differently than foretold." In the distance, visible despite enormous separation, the massive Erdtree shuddered. Sections of its golden bark darkened as the special flame reached it, burning away the thorns that had barred entry since the shattering. "The path opens," Malenia observed. "Yet every creature loyal to the greater will now mobilize against us." "Then we must move swiftly," Deku replied. "Before they can organize a coordinated defense." Their descent from the mountaintops proved even more perilous than the ascent. News of the burning Erdtree spread rapidly, throwing the lands between into chaos. Some celebrated the coming change, lighting symbolic fires of their own. Others fortified holy sites, believing the end times had arrived. Leyndell, the royal capital, presented their greatest challenge before reaching the Erdtree itself. The ancient city, built in concentric rings around the base of the massive tree, housed the most devoted followers of the Golden Order. As they approached its enormous walls, they found the defense already organized. Perfumers launched bottles of toxic mist from battlements. Knights wielding blessed weapons formed phalanxes at every gate. Most imposing of all, Morgott, the Omen King, another of Marika's children, personally directed the city's protection. "We need not fight through the entire city," Ranni observed, studying the layout from a distance. "There are passages beneath, ancient aqueducts that lead directly to the Erdtree sanctuary." "Morgott will have sealed them," Malenia countered. "He's guarded this city since the shattering, knowing every approach." "Then we create a diversion," Deku suggested, already formulating a plan. "Something to draw attention while a smaller group infiltrates through these underground passages." The strategy they devised utilized each of their strengths. Ranni, with her command of illusion, would create the appearance of a massive assault at the main gate. Blade and Iji would lead actual forces there, making the illusion convincing. Meanwhile, Deku, Malenia, and Miquella would infiltrate through the subterranean passages, with Malenia guiding them through forgotten pathways. "Be cautious," Ranni warned as they separated. Morgott may seem more reasonable than other demigods, but his devotion to the old order makes him perhaps the most dangerous. The diversion worked initially. Leyndell's defenders focused their attention on the massive illusory army appearing at their main gate, complete with convincing sounds and impacts crafted by Ranni's sorcery. Meanwhile, the infiltration team slipped into ancient sewers beneath the city, navigating labyrinthine passages guided by Malenia's knowledge. These tunnels predate Leyndell itself, she explained as they waded through knee-deep water. Built by an earlier civilization, before the Erdtree, before the Greater Will's arrival. The underground journey revealed a hidden history of the lands between, evidence of cultures and beliefs systematically erased by the Golden Order. Murals depicted star worship, communion with underground deities, and harmonious existence with beings now classified as abominations. The victors write history, Miquella observed sadly, studying the defaced artworks. Mother's conquests weren't merely physical but ideological. Alternative perspectives were not merely defeated but erased. That won't happen again, Deku promised. Whatever we build, it needs to preserve diverse viewpoints, not eliminate them. Malenia, who had been scouting ahead, returned with tension evident in her posture. Morgott anticipated this approach. Omen guards blocked the path forward. The omens, massive humanoids with horns and growths covering their bodies, had historically been banished to these sewers, considered abominations by the Golden Order despite being born of royal blood. Now they served as perfect sentinels for the underground approaches. Wait, Deku whispered, studying the omens from their hidden position. They don't look like they're patrolling. They look like they're praying. Indeed, the massive creatures knelt before a defaced altar, heads bowed in some forgotten ritual. Miquella stepped forward before anyone could stop him. Children of the Crucible, he addressed them in a gentle voice. Long persecuted for your nature, not your choices. The omens turned, initially hostile, but something in Miquella's presence gave them pause. He continued speaking in a language Deku didn't understand, but the effect was clear. The tension drained from the massive creatures. Several prostrated themselves before the eternally young demigod. What did you say to them? Deku asked as they were allowed passage. That the new order we seek would judge by action, not appearance, Miquella replied simply. A revolutionary concept for those condemned from birth. As they approached the ascent to Leyndell proper, Malenia suddenly stiffened. Morgott comes. He sensed our presence. They barely had time to prepare before the Omen King appeared, blocking their path. Unlike the hulking omens they'd just encountered, Morgott appeared almost regal despite his cursed nature. His crown glowed with golden light, and his staff radiated blessed energy. Siblings, he addressed Malenia and Miquella with complex emotion. You join the Tarnished in treason against the Golden Order. Against our mother's legacy. The Order failed us all, brother, Miquella replied. It failed you most visibly, condemning you for mere appearance while elevating others despite their actions. I serve loyally despite rejection, Morgott countered. While you seek to burn what remains of stability. We seek to build something better, Deku interjected, stepping forward. Not just for some, but for everyone, including the omens, those who live in death, all those the current order rejects. Morgott studied him with ancient eyes. Noble words from a tarnished. Yet actions speak louder. The burning of the Erdtree, a cardinal sin, reveals your true intent, destruction. Sometimes, Malenia spoke, her voice uncharacteristically gentle, that which persists should not, while that which should exist cannot without clearing space for new growth. For a moment, conflict played across Morgott's features. Then his expression hardened. Words will not dissuade me from my duty. He raised his staff, which transformed into a sword of pure light. The capital remains under my protection, until the stars themselves fall from the sky. The battle that followed tested them severely. Unlike previous opponents, Morgott fought with perfect control and strategic brilliance. His blessed weapons materialized and vanished unpredictably. Holy light erupted from the ground without warning. Most dangerous of all, he seemed to anticipate their movements, countering Deku's speed and Malenia's precision with uncanny prescience. He's reading our intentions, Deku realized after a near miss. Somehow connecting to our actions before we complete them. The two fingers grant him foresight, Miquella confirmed, maintaining a protective barrier that barely deflected Morgott's light projectiles. A reward for his unwavering loyalty. Deku's analytical mind raced for solutions. If Morgott could predict conventional attacks, they needed something unpredictable, something that countered foresight itself. Malenia, he called out between dodges, do you trust me? She gave him a single sharp nod. Then follow my lead. Miquella, be ready with that barrier technique when I signal. Deku charged directly at Morgott, a frontal assault so obvious that the Omen King easily sidestepped, his holy sword already swinging to catch Deku's expected trajectory. But instead of dodging, Deku deliberately took the hit, the blade slicing across his side. Foolish tarnished, Morgott began, but froze when he saw Deku's grin despite the pain. Predictable moves have predictable counters, Deku gasped, grabbing Morgott's sword arm. But what about this? With his free hand, Deku activated one for all at maximum output, channeling it not into offense but into his blood itself. The golden energy erupted from his wound in a blinding flash, temporarily severing Morgott's foresight connection. Now, Malenia. In the split second of Morgott's confusion, Malenia struck with perfect precision, not to kill but to disarm, her blade severing the mystical connection between Morgott and his holy weapons. Simultaneously, Miquella expanded his barrier, encasing Morgott in a sphere of unalloyed gold that neutralized external influences, including the two fingers' guidance. Isolated within the barrier, facing opponents he could no longer predict, Morgott faltered. His weapons dissipated, leaving him armed only with his physical abilities, formidable, but no match for their coordinated efforts. Within minutes, the Omen King knelt defeated, his crown shattered, his defiance replaced with grim acceptance. Finish it, then, he said quietly. Complete your treason. We didn't come to kill you, brother, Miquella replied, approaching the barrier. We came to offer alternative possibilities. From within his robes, Miquella produced a small golden needle, similar to those used to contain Malenia's rot, but designed for a different purpose. This will not cure your omen nature, for it requires no cure. But it will protect you from the two fingers' influence, allowing genuine choice for perhaps the first time. Morgott stared at the needle with complex emotions warring across his features. And if I choose to continue opposing you? Then we fight again, Malenia stated matter-of-factly. But as equals making choices, not as puppets serving external masters. For long moments, Morgott remained silent. Then, with hands that trembled slightly, he accepted the needle. I require time to consider implications. All we ask is that you allow our passage to the Erdtree, Deku said, pressing a hand against his wounded side. What comes after depends on what we find there. Whether from genuine consideration or simple exhaustion, Morgott nodded. The path through the sanctuary lies open. May you find wisdom before you find victory. With Morgott's resistance ended, the remainder of their journey through Leyndell proceeded without major opposition. The city's defenders, sensing their king's defeat, either retreated or stood aside. Some even approached Miquella, seeking assurance about the coming changes, evidence that not all servants of the Golden Order were blindly devoted to its preservation. At the Erdtree sanctuary, they reunited with Ranni, who had completed her diversionary role and joined them through her own secret pathways. Together, they stood before the massive trunk of the Erdtree itself, where the giant's flame had burned away the thorny barrier. Beyond lies Radagon, or what remains of him, Ranni stated, her ethereal form seeming to shimmer in proximity to the tree's power. The vessel of the Elden ring itself. And potentially the Elden beast, should we threaten the current order significantly enough, Miquella added. Deku studied the opening, making final notes in his journal. We stick to the plan. Ranni neutralizes cosmic influences. Malenia engages Radagon directly. Miquella works to access the Elden ring itself. I provide support wherever needed. And if the beast emerges? Malenia asked practically. Then we adapt, Deku replied simply. Together. They shared a final moment of connection, not through words but presence. Whatever awaited them would challenge not just their strength but their vision for this world's future. The current order had persisted for millennia, changing it would not come without tremendous resistance. For a better world, Miquella said softly. For freedom of choice, Ranni added. For protection of all, Malenia continued. For heroes yet to come, Deku concluded. Together, they stepped through the opening into the heart of the Erdtree itself. Inside, reality shifted. The chamber appeared simultaneously massive beyond comprehension and intimately close, its boundaries defined by roots that pulsed with golden light. At its center stood a figure both familiar and alien, a tall warrior with flowing red hair, wielding a massive hammer. Golden cracks covered his marble-like skin, light seeping through the fissures. Radagon, Miquella whispered, recognition and sorrow mingling in his voice. The figure turned, his movements unnaturally fluid. Though his face resembled both Malenia and Miquella, his eyes showed no recognition, only purpose without personality, determination without consciousness. The vessel remains, but the being we knew does not, Ranni observed. The greater will has hollowed him out, creating a perfect guardian without troublesome autonomy. Radagon raised his hammer, golden light erupting around him. The message was clear, no negotiation, no surrender, only enforcement of the established order. Remember the plan, Deku called as they spread out. Focus on your roles. The battle against Radagon tested their coordination to its limits. The hollow demigod fought with relentless efficiency, his hammer strikes creating shockwaves that rippled through reality itself. Golden light both healed his injuries and weaponized against them, seeking to purify impurities from existence. Malenia engaged him directly, her swordsmanship matching his hammer techniques with graceful precision. Where Radagon fought with overwhelming force, she countered with perfect economy of movement. Their clashing weapons created cascades of golden and scarlet energy that illuminated the chamber in impossible colors. Meanwhile, Ranni worked to neutralize the greater will's direct influence, her four arms weaving complex counter-incantations that gradually created zones where cosmic manipulation weakened. Miquella utilized these protected spaces to approach the chamber's perimeter, seeking access points to the Elden Ring's broken fragments embedded throughout the Erdtree's core. Deku moved between all three, his analytical mind processing battlefield developments in real time. When Radagon briefly overwhelmed Malenia's guard, Deku was there with a perfectly timed Delaware smash that disrupted the Hollow God's follow-up attack. When cosmic interference threatened Ranni's concentration, he cleared space around her with rapid-fire kicks that deflected incoming energy manifestations. The ring's fragments respond. Miquella called out after accessing one such piece. But they're incomplete, too much remains embedded within Radagon himself. Deku processed this information instantly. We need to separate the ring from its vessel. Ranni, can you create a larger neutralization field? The witch nodded, her concentration intensifying. Momentarily, but you must act quickly within it. Malenia, drive him to the chamber's center when Ranni signals. The swordswoman acknowledged with a precise parry that sent Radagon back several steps. She intensified her assault, each strike perfectly calculated to guide his movement rather than simply damage him. Ranni's power built to crescendo, for arms moving in complex patterns while starlight gathered around her. Ready. Now. A dome of anti-cosmic energy erupted outward, temporarily severing Radagon's connection to the greater will. In that moment of vulnerability, Malenia executed a perfect blade dance that herded the Hollow God exactly where they needed him. Simultaneously, Miquella directed golden energy into the ring fragments already accessed, creating resonance with those still within Radagon. Deku, channeling one for all at 100%, launched himself directly at the Hollow God's chest, where the largest crack in his stone-like skin revealed the Elden Ring's central fragment. United States of Smash. The impact was catastrophic. Radagon's form shattered like glass, fragments of his body dispersing to reveal what lay within, not organs or blood but pure cosmic geometry, the broken Elden ring itself suspended in golden light. For a moment, hope surged. They had separated the ring from its vessel, creating opportunity for reconfiguration. Miquella immediately began drawing the fragments together, his innate connection to the order allowing manipulation of its fundamental structure. Then the chamber trembled. Reality itself seemed to tear open as something massive began emerging from beyond, a creature of pure cosmic energy, part beast, part constellation, its mere presence distorting the laws of physics around it. The Elden beast, Ranni warned, her ethereal form flickering under the strain of proximity. The greater will's direct vassal manifests to prevent our interference. The creature was unlike anything Deku had faced before. Not simply powerful but power itself, embodied in a form comprehensible to mortal perception. It attacked not with conventional weapons but by manipulating reality, creating stars that exploded, rings of holy fire that pursued relentlessly, waves of golden light that erased whatever they touched. We can't defeat it conventionally, Deku realized, narrowly avoiding a star blast that vaporized the floor where he'd stood moments before. It exists partially outside our reality. Then we don't fight it directly, Miquella called back, still working to gather ring fragments. We complete our task before it can stop us. The strategy shifted from confrontation to completion. Malenia transformed from attacker to defender, her blade intercepting reality-warping projectiles before they could interrupt Miquella's work. Ranni expanded her counter-incantations to create a buffer zone around them, buying precious seconds against the beast's cosmic assault. Deku utilized One for All's maximum output to create physical interference, his body moving fast enough to disrupt the beast's attack patterns through sheer persistence. The ring recognizes me, Miquella called out, golden light flowing between his hands as fragments aligned. But not me alone. It requires all perspectives represented. Understanding immediately, Deku maintained his disruptive movements while calling out, Ranni. Malenia. We need you both connected to the ring alongside Miquella. If we disengage our current roles, the beast will overwhelm us instantly, Malenia countered, deflecting another holy fire ring. Then we change tactics, Deku replied, mind racing. I'll take on both your roles temporarily. One for All at 100% should let me maintain enough disruption while you join Miquella. Impossible, Ranni objected. Even with your power, you cannot counter cosmic principles and physical attacks simultaneously. Watch me, Deku grinned, golden lightning crackling across his entire body. This is what heroes do. Before they could object further, Deku launched into action. One for All pushed beyond normal limits, his body moving with such speed that he appeared to be in multiple places simultaneously. Where Ranni's countermeasures had created careful nullification, Deku created chaotic interference, his movements so unpredictable that the beast's reality manipulations couldn't target effectively. Where Malenia had provided precise defense, Deku offered overwhelming disruption, intercepting attacks through sheer omnipresence. Go! Now, he shouted, body beginning to strain under the enormous output. Understanding the sacrifice being offered, Malenia and Ranni disengaged from their defensive positions and rushed to Miquella's side. The three siblings, children of divinity through different paths, joined hands around the assembling Elden ring, each contributing their unique vision to its reconstruction. The Elden beast, sensing the imminent threat to the established order, intensified its assault. Reality itself began to fracture around Deku as he pushed One for All beyond sustainable limits. His muscles tore and healed repeatedly, golden energy both destroying and repairing his body in a constant cycle. Just a little longer. He gasped, intercepting another star blast that would have disrupted the reconstruction. At the chamber's center, the three demigods worked in perfect harmony. Miquella provided the foundation of acceptance and inclusion. Malenia contributed protection and persistence. Ranni integrated freedom from external control. Together, they wove these principles into the Elden ring's very structure, replacing rigid hierarchy with balanced cooperation. The Elden beast, realizing conventional attacks were being neutralized, changed tactics. It began pulling everyone toward a central point, attempting to absorb them into its cosmic essence, a final solution that would erase their very existence from reality. It's trying to consume us. Ranni called out, her ethereal form beginning to dissolve under the beast's influence. Deku, already pushed beyond his limits, made his final move. Channeling every remaining ounce of One for All, he launched himself directly at the beast's core, not to attack but to interfere with its fundamental nature. Your power comes from outside this world, he shouted as golden energy engulfed him completely. But mine comes from within, from people, from connections, from the drive to protect. As he collided with the beast's essence, something unprecedented occurred. One for all, power passed willingly from person to person, growing stronger with each generation, met cosmic energy imposed from above. The clash created feedback that momentarily stunned the beast, disrupting its absorption attempt. In that crucial moment, the demigods completed their work. The Elden Ring, reconstructed with new founding principles, flared with light unlike anything seen in the lands between before, not merely golden, but iridescent with multiple harmonious energies. Deku. Malenia called out, seeing him beginning to fade within the beast's essence. Return to us. With the last of his strength, Deku pushed away from the cosmic entity, his body trailing golden light as he fell back toward the chamber floor. Malenia caught him before he could impact, her usual stoicism broken by genuine concern. Reckless hero, she murmured, supporting his battered form. The reconstructed Elden Ring rose above them, its geometric patterns rearranged into new configurations that balanced multiple principles rather than enforcing a single dominant order. The Elden beast, confronted with this unprecedented development, seemed to hesitate, its cosmic programming encountering a scenario it had no protocols to address. Miquella approached the wounded Deku, golden healing energy flowing from his hands. Your sacrifice bought us the time needed, he said softly. The ring is remade, but its final implementation requires a lord to claim it. What happens now? Deku asked, feeling strength gradually returning to his battered body. Now, Ranni answered, we determine the shape of the coming age. The chamber had fallen strangely still. The Elden beast remained present but passive, watching as if awaiting the outcome of some cosmic protocol. The reconstructed ring hovered between all four of them, its light shifting in response to their proximity. It awaits a decision, Miquella observed. In the past, a single lord would claim it, imposing their vision alone. But our reconstruction suggests another possibility. Deku studied the ring, his analytical mind noting how its sections seemed designed to accommodate multiple influences simultaneously. It's built for shared governance now, isn't it? Not one lord, but a council of perspectives. Unprecedented, Ranni acknowledged, but consistent with our design intentions. The question remains, Malenia added practically, who shall constitute this council? All three demigods looked to Deku, whose eyes widened in surprise. Me? But I'm not even from this world. My goal was always to find a way home eventually. Perhaps, Miquella suggested gently, that journey home need not preclude participation here. The reconstructed ring exists partially outside conventional time and space. Connection across realms becomes possible in ways previously unimaginable. Deku considered this possibility, that he might somehow maintain connection to both worlds, bringing heroic principles to the lands between while still returning to his friends and mentors. A hero serves where needed, Malenia said, echoing his own philosophy back to him. Sometimes in multiple capacities. After a moment's consideration, Deku nodded. If it's possible to maintain connection to both worlds, then yes, I'll help guide this new age while it finds its balance. The decision made, all four approached the ring together. Rather than a single coronation, they each contributed their essence to different aspects of its structure. Miquella embodied compassion and inclusion. Malenia represented protection and persistence. Ranni maintained freedom from external manipulation. And Deku integrated heroic service, the principle that power exists to elevate others rather than dominate them. As they completed this unprecedented shared claiming, the Elden beast finally reacted. Its cosmic form began to change, shifting from monstrous to harmonious as the new configuration rewrote its very purpose. No longer merely enforcer of rigid order, it became guardian of balanced cooperation, still powerful, still vigilant, but serving multiple principles rather than a single authority. Light exploded outward from the Erdtree, washing across the lands between in a wave of iridescent energy. Where it passed, subtle but profound changes occurred. The scarlet-wrought blooms began transforming into vibrant ecosystems rather than pure corruption. The eternal stasis of those who live in death shifted to a balanced half-life that allowed genuine participation rather than mere existence. Across every region, rigid categories blurred as the new order established itself, not erasing differences but celebrating them within a framework of mutual respect. In the aftermath, the four architects of this new age found themselves at the Erdtree's base, looking out over a transformed landscape. Already, people were gathering below, some fearful, others hopeful, all sensing the fundamental shift in reality itself. They will need guidance, Miquella observed. Not control, but example. And clear principles to replace dogma, Ranni added. Protection during transition, Malenia noted practically. Deku nodded, understanding his role clearly. And heroes to show them what's possible when power serves rather than dominates. In the days that followed, a new pattern established itself. The demigods, no longer driven by conflict over great runes, found renewed purpose as guides rather than rulers. Miquella restored the Haligtree as a center for healing and learning. Ranni established connections to cosmic principles without subservience to them. Malenia trained a new generation of knights who protected the vulnerable rather than merely serving the powerful. And Deku? He discovered that the reconstructed ring had indeed created possibilities previously unimaginable. Through meditation at certain convergence points, he could briefly return to his home world, appearing to his friends and mentors not as a ghost but physically present, if temporarily. These visits allowed him to share his experiences, maintain connections, and eventually begin bringing willing volunteers back with him to help establish heroic principles in the lands between. Uraraka was first, her gravity manipulation proving invaluable in reconstruction efforts. Todoroki followed, his balanced fire and ice perfectly symbolizing the new order's harmonious approach. Even All Might himself made the journey once, his meeting with the demigods creating lasting impressions on both sides. During a rare quiet moment at the Haligtree, Deku found Malenia practicing her swordplay, not with desperate intensity as before, but with balanced precision that contained the rot without suppressing her power. Your integration technique continues to serve you well, he observed, leaning against a nearby tree. Indeed. She executed a perfect form before sheathing her blade. As does your heroic philosophy. The knights you've trained approach protection differently than any warriors in our history. It's amazing what happens when you focus on saving people rather than just defeating enemies. Malenia approached, studying him with her uncovered eye. You've changed since our first meeting. So have you, he replied with a smile. Less stabbing on sight, for one thing. The hint of a smile touched her lips, a rare expression that had become slightly less rare in recent months. Your influence extends beyond systems and principles, hero. You've changed individuals as well. That's what heroes do, inspire others to find their own heroic potential. Later that evening, a council gathered at the Round Table Hold, once a gathering place for tarnished seeking glory, now transformed into a center for cooperative governance. Miquella, Malenia, and Ranni represented the demigod perspective. Deku and several of his hero friends provided the heroic viewpoint. Representatives from previously marginalized groups, omens, those who live in death, even reformed blood cultists, contributed their unique experiences. Reports from the western regions confirmed successful integration, an omen representative stated. Communities that once expelled our kind now seek our strength for mutual protection. The star-following nomads have established 3 new schools, Ranni added. teaching cosmic principles without requiring submission to them. And the hero training program? Deku asked. Miquella smiled. Overwhelmed with applicants. It seems the concept resonates deeply, particularly among the young. As the meeting concluded, Deku found himself looking out over the transformed landscape. The Erdtree still stood tall, but no longer dominated with blinding golden light. Instead, it shared the sky with Ranni's moonlight, Miquella's healing radiance, and countless smaller but significant illuminations, a visual representation of the balanced order they'd established. Thinking of home? Malena's voice interrupted his contemplation as she materialized beside him. Thinking of both homes, he corrected. And how fortunate I am to bridge them. The convergence grows stronger, she observed. Your transitions between worlds become easier each time. Yeah. Today I managed almost 6 hours with my mom before returning. Took her a while to stop crying, but eventually we had a real conversation. Your mother must be very proud of what you've accomplished here. Deku smiled. She's mostly just glad I'm alive. The whole, co-creating a new cosmic order thing is a bit abstract for her. Mothers focus on what matters most, Malenia noted with unexpected wisdom. As night fell, Deku found himself drawn to the convergence point near the minor Erdtree in Liurnia, a place where the boundaries between worlds had grown particularly thin. His regular visits home maintained his connection to his original purpose while his work in the lands between expanded it into something he could never have imagined. Seated in meditation, he felt the familiar golden energy of One for All flowing through him, unchanged in essence despite everything he'd experienced. Perhaps that was the ultimate lesson, true power maintained its core principles regardless of context. As the convergence activated, briefly connecting him to his home world, he carried that understanding with him, along with the knowledge that heroism transcended dimensional boundaries, finding expression wherever people needed protection, inspiration, and hope. In two worlds simultaneously, Deku continued his journey, the hero who helped demigod queens find balance, and in doing so, discovered new dimensions to his own heroic potential. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.